call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. And Jess, can you start our roll call?
Yes. Please say present when you hear your name. Commissioner Swamy.
Present.
Commissioner Sharon.
Present.
Commissioner Butch.
Present.
Commissioner Stanek.
Present.
And Vice Chair Begor.
Present.
All right.
All right. So with the first ceremonial matters and presentations, the subject being the chair and vice chair selection, we will conduct the selection of the chair and vice chair. Just so you know, I am only doing this piece. Once we've chosen a chair, it's up to them to take the meeting from there. Yeah. Just so you also know, Jessica and I went through Rosenberg's rules of order today to make sure that we kind of got on board with the way that we're doing this. And so given that there is no presentation and therefore no clarification questions on a presentation, we're going to go straight to public comment, and then we'll come back for motions and discussion. Okay. So if you are one of our attendees and you would like to speak, please go ahead and raise your hand. And if the control room can put up our 3 minutes, then we can go ahead and Jess, if you can let people speak. We will start with Louise Sadati.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I wanted to be sure to be logged in, and I have inadvertently logged myself in on an iPad on an iPhone. So I have an echo. So, okay. So I am Louise Sadati, and I am speaking as a resident of 36 years. And I would like to recommend Carol Stanek as the next chairperson. I feel that in watching all of the Parks and Rec meetings that I have, I've really been impressed by how professional she is, her depth of knowledge. She has been on the Parks and Rec Commission for multiple terms. And I think this is her last year. I'd like to see her use her expertise in managing the meetings professionally in the next year. It's been a little bit frustrating for me to see her not as the chairman, needing to prompt the chairman on procedure and what needs to be done next. And I think you guys will have a lot of items to take care of in the coming year. I'd like to see the meeting run professionally, smoothly, efficiently, as I know Carol can do. Secondly, I'd like to nominate or speak as a resident in support of Jennifer Sharon as co-chair, because she's had a term and a half in commissions, so she's experienced. But even equally, if not more important, she lives in the East Side. And I feel that a lot of the residents on the East Side, especially when it comes to parks, really feel they want to have their voice heard, and they want to have some strong representation on the Parks and Rec Commission. So I want to support Jennifer Sharon as vice chair, and Carol Stanek as chair. I think I made it. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Next, we have Deepa Mahendrekar.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, all right. Over the years, I have come to many parks and recreation meetings for, some of my passion projects around the city. And I kind of, Louis just went before me. We worked together on quite a few things ourselves. I agree with Louis, and I would like to nominate Carol as chair. Over so many years, I think one of the consistent factors I have seen is that Carol is very objective and always sees both sides of the coin. and definitely works on ensuring that the entire team works together and works well. I feel like a lot can be done if we have experienced leadership, and Carol brings that to the table. Actually, that's all I had, so I'm done. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deepa. Next, we have Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, thanks. So I just have a general comment. I think with all the things that have been going on with parks and parks planning over the last few years, I don't have a specific person to suggest, but I think it makes sense to have an existing, not necessarily a new commissioner, take the role of of being the leader of the pack, I guess. Just because there's some history that we know they know. And it doesn't mean the others don't know, but they're familiar with everything they've been to, and I don't think any of them have missed a meeting. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And next and last hand I see is Judy Wilson. Welcome, Judy. Judy, you will need to unmute yourself.
Okay, is that better?
There you go.
Okay, hi everyone. So thank you for your time this evening. My name is Judy Wilson, and I'm speaking tonight as a 30-plus year resident at Cupertino. However, I was also a past Parks and Recs commissioner. So I'm here to ask for your consideration in appointing Carol Stanek as chair tonight for Parks and Rec. So Carol probably said before, Carol has the voice of experience, and she's been on the commission for a long time, including having been chairman before, maybe more than once, and has mentored many of the commissioners, and for that matter, probably has mentored some of the directors. She's experienced in the workings of the commission. She also knows commission protocol and has a great bit of historical knowledge. Before she was a commissioner, she was also an active participant in our community in Parks and Rec. So I think everyone would be well served, with her leadership, her skills, her experience, and her community and civic knowledge. As I was a little late to the game, but I think someone said before, it would be great to have an experienced voice on a new set of people. And also, I would like for your consideration to propose Jennifer Sheeran as vice chair. She is new to the commission, but she too has been a commissioner, I think as Spike's PED. So she also knows process and city issues. And just for consideration, she lives on the east side of town, and I know sometimes that is an unrepresented part of town, and she would be a good representative. She knows the parks and recreation needs of that side of town, so that might balance it out. Anyway, so thanks for hearing me out tonight. And again, a thank you all for the work you do. Having been a commissioner, I know it's a labor of love. They pay you the big bucks to do this. So we appreciate those of you who've been on it and the new members for giving to our community. Thank you. Thanks, Rochelle.
All right, thank you, Judy. And that's all the hands I see. So I would like to close public comment and bring it back to our commissioners for nominations. If you could raise your hand if you have nominations, that would be perfect. And the first hand I see is Commissioner Swamy.
Thank you very much. We have been in this commission for a year now, and yes, been very impressed with the representation, and welcome to the new members on the commission. I today have been in the last few months and over the year that I have seen, Commissioner Begor has really brought a very, very strong perspective, and I really admire the fact how she balances the entire needs of Cupertino. Even if she resides in the other side of the Cupertino, she has actually made it a point to come over and walk around on the Rancho Rinconado side and checked out where the requirements for Parks and Recreation are. For that, I thank you very much, Commissioner Begor, for taking that statesman role and doing it. Every single issue, whether it is Memorial Park or it is, or just overall, whether it is inclusiveness, I have been extraordinarily impressed with her sagacity and how she really is very wise in how she balances and takes every perspective into account, but more importantly in her judgment calls that I have a deep respect for. I think Cupertino City will be very, very well served by having Commissioner Begor be the chair. And she served as vice chair very well over the last year.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Swamy. So we have one nomination for Vice Chair Begor. Do I have a second for that nomination?
I can second that myself.
Okay. All right, and then, sorry, just making sure I get that down. And then I have another hand raised from Commissioner Sheeran.
Hi, I'm not certain whether or not I need to make a substitute motion or.
We haven't made a motion yet because we're just doing nominations.
Okay, so I'm going to nominate Carol for our chair of the commission. I think we heard from several members of the public, and I think it's really important to listen to our residents about what they're looking for in a chair of the commission. And I will say that Carol has an extraordinarily deep knowledge of our Parks and Rec parks, our programs, and has been for many, many years. In fact, before I joined the Bike Ped Commission, I had talked to Carol about some of her, Parks and Rec things. So I would like to nominate Carol because I think that she would be the best person to lead us through these difficult processes coming up over the next year for 2 major parks. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a nomination also for Commissioner Stanek. Do I have a second for that nomination?
Yeah, I can second that. I did quite a bit of whatever information I could get on everyone, all commissioners, and I really was impressed reading about Carol's background, and then understanding her contribution over the years. So yeah, I think I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we have 2 nominations and 2 seconds. So let's start with someone making the first motion to be voted on. So if someone can make a motion.
I can make the motion.
Okay.
So I'd like to make the motion to vote for the chair for Vice Chair Begor, current Vice Chair Begor, for the position of chair. Is that the way to do it?
Yes. You're catching on, Commissioner Swamy. All right, and then can we get a second for that motion?
I can second that again.
Okay, Jessica, can we get a roll call vote, please?
All right. Commissioner Swamy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sheeran,
No.
Commissioner Butch,
No.
Commissioner Stanek,
No, excuse me, no.
and Vice Chair Begor.
Of course, yes.
Motion fails with 3 no and 2 yes.
See, Commissioner Begor, you had to do the same thing as the poor library commissioner last night. All right, so if that motion failed, can I please get a second motion on the second nomination?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Carol Stanek as the next chair of the Parks and Rec Commission.
And can I get a second for that motion?
Yes, for Commissioner Carol, yes.
All right, with the motion and a second, Jessica, can we do a roll call vote, please?
All right. Commissioner Swamy,
No.
Commissioner Sheeran,
Yes.
Commissioner Butch,
For Carol, yes.
Commissioner Stanek,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Begor.
No.
Motion carries with 3 yes and 2 no.
All right, thank you, everybody. So that is the end of me having to run this lovely meeting. I would like to hand it over to our new chair, Commissioner Stanek.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the nomination and for the votes and for the public comment in support of me and my commissioners who voted for me. Is there anyone who would like to nominate someone for vice chair? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Swamy.
I would like to vote or nominate current Vice Chair Begor to the same role as Vice Chair. She's done a phenomenal job over the last year, and I'd like to continue her to see her bring the same verve and advocacy for the cause of Cupertino residents to the Parks and Recreation. For that reason, I would nominate Commissioner Begor, also because she has immense background and experience on these issues in particular. And I think she would be an excellent commander-in-chief support for you, Commissioner Stanek.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second for that?
I guess I'll second myself again.
Okay, we have a second. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Yeah, I Jennifer, I'd like to nominate her for vice chairman for this commission.
Okay. Do I have a second for the vice chair of Jennifer Sherman?
I will second myself, like Sashi.
Okay. I guess the next thing would be to have a nomination, or a motion, I'm sorry, a motion for vice chair. Commissioner Swamy.
Sorry, are we voting or do I need to?
Please make a motion.
Motion. I'd like to make the motion to cast the vote in favor of Vice Chair Begor to continue the vice chairmanship for the coming year as well.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second it again.
Okay. Shall we go to a vote?
Yes. Commissioner Swamy,
Yes?
Commissioner Sheeran,
No.
Commissioner Butch,
No.
Vice Chair Begor,
Yes.
and Chair Stanek.
No.
Motion fails with 2 yes and 3 no.
Okay. Do I have a motion, another motion for vice chair?
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion for Jennifer, Commissioner Jennifer. For
vice chair, do I have, okay. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a vote on this motion, please?
Commissioner Swamy,
No.
Commissioner Sheeran,
Yes.
Commissioner Butch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Begor,
No.
and Chair Stanek.
Yes.
Motion carries with 3 yes and 2 no.
Okay, thank you very much. This is always a new part of a new year to appoint our new chair and vice chair. And so I'd like to also welcome our new commissioners to the commission. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I would say, generally, you won't be faced with a 500-page agenda packet a day before you need to come to a meeting. So I hope that didn't scare you away. This is a particularly big agenda packet with a lot of information and a lot of good things that are going to be presented tonight. So I look forward to the meeting. So let's move to the next item, which is item number 2, approval of the minutes. And before I take any comments of that, I just wanted to make a comment on procedure on this. For those of you who were in attendance, you may vote on this. If you were not in attendance at those meetings, if you had watched the meetings and read the minutes and feel you can vote for them, then you can vote. Or if you had not done that, you may abstain. So I just wanted to make that clear for those of you. So are there any comments on the minutes? Commissioner Swamy, you have your hand up. Is that left over?
I think it's left over.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any comments for the minutes of November 17th meeting? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous Parks and Recreation Commission meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that?
My job to second today, I guess, so I will second that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a vote.
Right. And I just wanted to chime in here. We did actually check with the clerk for all of our meeting minutes. And even if you were not present at the meeting, you can still vote on the meeting minutes. You can also choose to abstain. So just as a reminder before we begin the vote. All right. Commissioner Swamy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sheeran?
Abstain.
Commissioner Butch?
Yes.
Commissioner Begor?
Yes.
And Chair Stanek.
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3, which are the minutes from December 1st, Parks and Recreation meeting. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay, if no comments or questions, do I have a motion on the minutes?
You guys are going to make me make all the motions, aren't you? I motion to approve the minutes from the December 1st Parks and Recreation Commission meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that?
I can't second this one because I did not attend it, so I'll let someone else have a chance to second this.
I'll second it.
I trust you.
Okay, good.
I didn't attend, but I'll approve it.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, we can take a vote. So I just want to say, even if you did not attend, if you watched the meeting and read the minutes, you can still vote on this. If you did not do that, feel free to abstain.
I actually did
Okay.
watch the meeting and read the agenda minutes, but I was just
Okay.
following old protocol where we actually made a point of abstaining. So
Commissioner Bigger, that's
No, so
totally
that was-
on us. We had to get complete clarification because that's the way we've always run them. So I'm with you. That was the way it used to be. And we had to get clarification for sure on that.
all right,
No, I
thank
think
you.
it was, if you had watched and read the minutes, then that would make sense. Okay, let's have a vote.
Commissioner Swamy?
Yes.
Commissioner Butch?
Yes.
Commissioner Begor?
Abstain.
Vice Chair Sheeran?
Yes.
And Chair Stanek.
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item is postponements. I don't believe we have any postponements. Do we? No. Okay. The next item on our agenda is oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. If you would like to speak during our oral communications, please raise your hand now. And I'll give it a little bit. Okay, right now I have one person with their hand up. So I'd like to recognize Jennifer. And I see a second hand has come up, Lisa Warren. If there are others who would like to speak during oral communications, please try to get your hand up by the time Jennifer's done so we know how many people are going to go. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year again and again. I just wanted to do a big shout out for the Stockelmeyer House. I'm really, really concerned that this very historic site is kind of sitting there with not a lot of love and attention. And if people weren't aware, Mr. Stockelmeyer was one of the founders of Cupertino. He's very, very involved with the Petit Trion at De Anza. California History Center. And I really think that this year we need to make a concentrated effort to make sure that the Stockmeyer House is restored. I've been involved with the hopefully restoration of the Graves House in West San Jose. I belong to PAC SJ, and we have these historic sites. Mr. Stockholm, we need to recognize the history of the orchard and ranching era in Cupertino. If you all weren't aware, 50 years ago, we were covered in many, many orchards of different kinds of fruit. This is a valuable thing for our children to be learning about the history. California has a very strong rural pastoral history, and I think that we need to take the time to invest in the history of our old buildings. I'm putting a challenge out. We have a lot of people in our area, in our city, that have a lot of money available to them. And I would just love to see people putting donations into historic buildings like the Stockmeyer House. I haven't seen a lot of donations toward this type of charity in Cupertino in the past. The Hewlett and Packard families have donated a lot of money historically to this type of thing. And I am putting a challenge out now. Some of our billionaires, Google, Facebook, etc., let's put the money where the mouth is. And rather than running rampant in high tech, let's put the money into the history of this state. A lot of us have our lives invested in this state with our families, and we want to make sure that that history is not lost. Yes, we have tech. We all have worked in tech, but before tech, there was the land, and California
15 seconds.
15
we want
seconds.
to make sure that that history is recognized and taught in our schools, so children will learn about what this land was before tech. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and well done, getting right under the 3 minutes. We have one other speaker, Lisa Warren.
Hi. So coincidentally, I guess, Jennifer, you should know that during interviews for commissioners, there were a couple people, one in particular that was did not get selected, but was very supportive of your idea and wanted his kids to grow up knowing the history of where they live. So maybe there's a way to connect with him and get more conversation about that. So that was actually not something I was going to say. Obviously, I didn't know what Jennifer was going to say. But what I would like to point out, just as an FYI, for Lawrence Mitty, and I've spoken to people, staff from the city about this, but I just think the chair, the vice chair, and a full commission should know that it's a concern. So Lawrence Mitty has had an explosion of population of unhoused, and they were making their home there, which, you know, it's a nice place to make a home, I guess. And I feel for them. This is not negative about them, but they were there during the rainy season, and when, well, the 2.5 weeks of rain every day. And you can imagine how soggy they must have gotten. So there was a display of clothing and items being dried out after that, which is understandable, but it was very visible. And at one point they were hanging on the fence at Lawrence Expressway, the clothing and things. Initially they were further in toward the creek, but you could still see them. And there's also a population that is on the trail, the existing trail between Bollinger and the newer location and the Sterling Barnhart Park Bridge. and similar things were going on. It's just not there's many people. Now, I'm not being negative toward what these people have to do to survive, but what I do know is I got a lot of comments directed at me that this is really bad because people are already worried about the location of the park, and people want to open a bike trail, which is completely inappropriate in my opinion, but I'll go into that another time. That
15 seconds.
That goes north of the park. So I just wanted to make you aware, and perhaps you guys could, as commissioners, could go by and visit it every once in a while and just walk that trail and see what you see and see what you think could be done better. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And also thank you for staying within the allotted time. That is all the hands I have for oral communications today. So we will close oral communications and move back to the agenda. And do we have any written communications for today?
No, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to there's no old business either. So I guess it's a good thing with a 500-page agenda packet. We'll go on to new business. The subject, item number 4, consider the Memorial Park specific plan project update on the development of the conceptual design and community input. And I will turn it over to our director, Rochelle.
And I will introduce, I believe I'm introducing Ayano, our project manager for the Memorial Park project.
Thank you, Director. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, we're providing you an update on the Revitalized Memorial Park project, the Memorial Park specific plan. The project has been funded by City Council and was prioritized with the 2022-23 City Work Program. Next slide, please. The following is an outline for this item. We'll be presenting you 3 park concepts based and derived from the original 2020 Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, site assessments, and public outreach done this past fall. A public survey on the preferred concept and features is currently available on Engage Cupertino through the 22nd. We appreciate your time and feedback on this project. After a brief team introduction, we will present an overview of the project, outreach summary, and each park concept. Next slide, please. At the top, you'll see the Cupertino project team. Chad Mosley, Rochelle Sander, and Susan Michael are here with me today. We also appreciate other staff involved, including Assistant City Manager Matt Morley, other CIP team members, Parks and Public Works staff, and the tremendous support given by the communications and IT teams. Below are the Gates and Associates team members. The city hired Gates and Associates in July of 2022 to spearhead this effort, and the team members are Casey Case and Michael Freitag, who we have joining us today, along with Dana Falk and Rebecca Flanagan. And with this, I'll pass this over to Casey from Gates and Associates.
Hi, good evening, and thank you so much for having us. I wanted to give a quick introduction of Gates and Associates, and we are a landscape architecture and urban design firm, and we were selected to work on the master plan for Memorial Park. We really put an emphasis on being inclusive, listening to the community, and making sure that our designs are driven based on that feedback, and also designs that we provide and prepare are buildable and realistic for what's needed within the community and the space. With that, tonight we're going to be talking about Memorial Park, so I imagine you're all familiar with it, but I wanted to give a little context for our project. So what we were hoping to do was to improve the site to meet some of the recreation needs and goals that were set forth in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, as well expand some of those potential uses and to enhance what is already a wonderful gem within the city, and use an effort through community outreach to make sure that some of the goals set forth were still the most present and pressing, which you'll see some summaries of. I apologize if we contributed significantly to your gigantic package, but I'll try to keep it really brief. So in the Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, there were several community themes that came forth throughout all of the studies of the parks. And several of those landed with programming opportunities in Memorial Park. And a lot of the focus of that effort landed on community emphasis, creating multiple usable opportunities, and enhancing a civic focus space that allows for events. We also worked on setting goals specific for the Memorial Park project, that work to create event spaces that are flexible, enhances the natural landscape, provides opportunities for social interactions, creates high quality opportunity for recreation, increases shade, make sure that we're mindful of the natural habitat, and promotes connectivity with sustainable features. So with that information, we developed our project process. It looks somewhat like Lombard Street, but it's actually quite linear and wonderful. And so we started off by understanding the park, what is there now, what those existing conditions look like. And that involves some site assessments, which we'll share a little bit of our findings from. Then we kicked off our round 1 of our community outreach. So what we asked was, what would you guys like to see in Memorial Park? And what about some of the things that are there do you love? And what are some of those things that could be different? I'll share a summary of some of those findings, which then led us to our conceptual design. So we came up with a couple alternatives of what the future build out of Memorial Park could look like. We'll be sharing a few of those this evening. Then based on some of the feedback from you guys, as well as asking the community, in addition to some of the feedback from you guys, as to which do they prefer, what's working, what's not working in some of our concept ideas, we'll move into a preferred alternative, which will then be eventually adopted and implemented as the master plan for Memorial Park. So in our outreach sessions, we asked a bunch of questions to try to get an understanding of where does Memorial Park need to go, evolve, or remain so that it serves the community in the best possible way. So we chatted with a lot of people. We had conversations or online input from over 2,300 people. We had 1 community event, 3 pop-up booths, which you can see some pictures below, a webinar, and 6 focus group interviews. And we got some really interesting insights. One of the questions we asked was how do you use Memorial Park now? Where would you like to see it go? And we saw this wonderful, fairly even split between using it as a civic space, a community space, and a natural space. So you will see as we move into some of the concepts that we really tried to perpetuate that essence as we develop the park concepts. We also noticed there were a lot of themes when we were talking to people about what's working, how is it now, and where would we like it to go, that really well aligned with the efforts that had been done in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And a few came to the front for us. So some of those were enhancing the park facility and access. So there was a lot of interest in adding walking paths, making sure that there were reasons for exercise, loops, connectivity to a greater network of trails. We also heard that people wanted to celebrate the incredibly diverse and multifaceted community that is Cupertino and make sure there continue to be these opportunities for festivals and events that help to celebrate some of that. We also heard that the natural experience was a priority. People like to engage with nature. We heard a lot about the shade, which came up in a couple elements as well. So potentially enhancing the existing tree canopy so there are more shade opportunities, and a consideration for maybe some more native planting and demonstration gardens. There was an interest in play, so to upgrade and enhance what was already there. There was interest in making sure that it was accessible to all bodies, ages, and types of humans. Nature play and a mix of water play, as well as an interest in some bike courses. We wanted to have, or the community wanted to see a mix of active and passive recreation that was incredibly inclusive. They wanted to see dedicated tennis courts as well as pickleball courts. And there were some ideas for sports games or table games, as well as fitness stations. And then again, reiterating having this opportunity for social gathering spaces for celebrations, performances, picnic areas, groups, small and large. And again, shade. Did I mention shade? We wanted to have some shade. Okay, so when we went out there and assessed the site, there was a lot of really great things already happening in the park that we wanted to be mindful of. And we wanted to consider some opportunities for what needs to stay and remain as is, as well as what is happening in the park that could have a new home. So these are some of our assessments, just noting the existing conditions of the softball field, the senior center, Quinlan Center, some event gathering spaces as they are now, sports opportunities, and play areas. Then when we were digging a little deeper, we knew there were some places that we did not want to change, and those were the areas indicated here in yellow. We don't want to impact the memorial zone or the gazebo. We do know that the cell tower needs to remain. We need to keep parking, and we have no plans to change the buildings on site. We also took a look at the existing conditions of the landscape. There are several trees within the park. We were surprised how few of them were actually flowering cherries, being as there is the cherry festival within the park. So that was kind of a fun finding. We did notice that there is a mix of suitable trees that are doing okay and others that aren't quite so happy in their conditions on the site. We did also notice there was a lot of lawn within the park, and it doesn't entirely align with the goals of reducing water usage throughout the city. So that was something we were mindful of as we were studying alternative concepts. And also that is something we paid closer attention to since it was a top priority or one of the higher priorities to consider a water feature. And being as the mix of the extensive amount of lawn and the removal of what were previously the ponds didn't feel well aligned with the city's goals to remove water, it wasn't something that we pushed much further in our concept design because it didn't feel suitable with the climate direction that the city's hoping to take. And we came up with 3 hopefully interesting and discussion-worthy concepts that I'm going to share with you guys. So the structure in which I was hoping to share these is to explain that we developed 3 concepts that have a focus, one on community, one on nature, one on civic. And we did this because of those 3 relatively equal areas of interest in the park. But what I do want to mention is that does not mean that all 3 examples aren't including all 3 of these elements. It was a nice way for us to break up an emphasis and allow for a little deeper discussion and feedback as we ask questions on preferences. So I'm going to talk you guys through each concept at a high level, then hone in on some of the differences between the 2 or between the 3, as well as share some images that might help you to envision what we were thinking in our concept development. I also want to mention that there are several features that are consistent throughout all 3 concepts that we don't anticipate changing. So I mentioned some of the memorial elements, the parking lots, the gazebo, and the buildings will not be changing. And in all 3 concepts, we do intend to have a greater enhanced entry, so a sense of arrival, more trees for shade, more cherry trees to help with the cherry tree festival, more planted areas in general that will help us to reduce some of the lawn, a network of multi-use pathways that connect to greater networks and trails throughout the area as well. So all 3 concepts will be considering those goals. So the first one is our community focus. So this was in response to the interest in having a social opportunity and event space. So some of the features of this are taking the existing softball field and replacing that with what we're calling a multi-age recreation area. So there's a lot of opportunity in here. In this particular concept, we shared some ideas of a bike garden, fitness station, game tables, some flexible use spaces. We also, in this particular concept, are adding pickleball courts in addition to the tennis courts. We add a passive garden walk at the center with educational signage and native planting. So in the center of our site where there previously were some of our ponds. And we add an event lawn to the southern zone down here near the senior center. We have an enhanced tree line at the edges of the Quinlan's Community Center. So it's maintaining a lawn event space in this zone here. We're adding a shaded group picnic area between what we're showing as the multiple age rec area and the Quinlan lawn. So this is a shaded group picnic area, as well as some street parking and drop off at the south end of Anton. So we added a little bit of parking and a drop off space here. And in this concept, the amphitheater is intended to be upgraded, but remain as is. And as I mentioned before, the gazebo and the memorial remain the same. So some of the distinct features of this concept are enhancing the Quinlan courtyard as an event space, keeping the event lawn, but maybe formalizing some of the edges so it feels like a tree-framed event space. And then this idea of a multi-age play area that has just a mix of features that's really meant to appeal to anybody who wants to be outside, play, gather in a group that could be small or large, and kind of find their little space that accommodates what they're looking for. Our next concept was our nature focus. So this one has the largest dedication to some of the planting, educational experience opportunities. And some of the features here are we transformed the southern zone of the park, so down here north toward the senior center, into an educational garden zone. And we're considering adding in a nature play area as well. And in this one, we add an event space between the Veterans Memorial and the gazebo. So in here, this is where we would anticipate having the festivals. This concept provides an additional picnic area at the Quinlan lawn space. So this existing softball field would remain in this concept, adding a picnic area space here. And in this one, we take one of the tennis ball courts and dedicate it to pickleball only, so it's not dual striped. And in this also alternative, we keep the amphitheater in its current location and it is upgraded. So some of the unique features of this concept: in our event lawn space, we like the idea of having it relate to the social terrace of the Quinlan Community Center. We add a passive garden walk that's a connection between the recreation area up here. And then we emphasize this educational native planting, some of these pollinator habitat, maybe educational signage in this lower half of the park. And then our third and final concept, we had emphasis on civic focus. So this was where we really paid up our event lawn opportunities, as well as some nods to memorial and art spaces. So in this one, we provide an event space behind the senior center. So it was previously this pond zone is now dedicated to events and festival gathering opportunities. And we take what was previously the amphitheater in this location and move it to where there is currently the existing softball field. And in this concept, the amphitheater is expanded to accommodate larger events and performances. And next to it, we're proposing an upgraded playground. And the two tennis courts are now dual striped for pickleball. So this one doesn't have distinct pickleball opportunities. We also have additional parking on Anton Way and a drop off at Anton Way and Alves Drive. So we added a little drop off zone here and some additional parking down here on Anton Way. And some of the areas of emphasis on this one are this idea of an interactive cultural exhibit area that we've added to the center of the park, which could have some really fun opportunities for art or discussions of the history or some of the unknown elements of Cupertino, maybe some of the agrarian history that was mentioned by one of our speakers, the relocation of the expanded amphitheater, and then the emphasis of an event lawn closer down towards the senior center. So those are our three high-level concepts. It does not have to be one versus another. There may be a preferred scheme that ends up being a blend of all three of these, or potentially an idea that we haven't even heard, which is why it's so fun for us to kind of throw out these ideas and see what really sticks, what really resonates, what might feel like it doesn't work, or what could be great. So where we will go from here, we did mention, Ayano mentioned that we have a survey that is live. The survey that is live and available on the engagecupertino.org site for /Memorial Park Specific Plan is very similar to what you guys saw this evening. It allows people to see each concept, some images associated with each one, and then questions asking, what amenities about this concept do you really like? Which ones do you not so much like? And that was our best way of helping to virtually get feedback to people who may not be available to come to some of our future events. But some of our future events, as I might add, are on Saturday. We will be at the Cupertino Senior Center. We will have these boards up and displayed, asking people questions. They will have the opportunity to vote or place a token in the box in front of their preferred concept, as well as share insights and feedback with us. We will be at the Bike and Ped Commission, maybe on the 15th, having the February 9th community webinar, similar to the presentation we're sharing this evening, and intend to go to council in April. And the ask we have of you, in addition to any clarifying questions and feedback, is to help us spread the word. The more people who can take the survey, give us some ideas about what they'd really like to see in Memorial Park, then the more accurate and appropriate for the community our preferred concept will be. With that, I will stop my screen share and kick it back over to you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. There was so much in all of the backup material and all of the work that you have done. It was really phenomenal. So right now what I'd like to do is open it up to questions. So this part is for questions from commissioners. So what I'd like you to do is if you have comments on the various aspects of it, I'd like you to hold that till later. Right now, this is just for clarifying questions for the consultant or for the staff. After that, we will go to public comment and ask them for their questions. Then we will bring it back for a wrap-up discussion for us as commissioners. So thank you for raising your hands. The first hand that I see raised is Sashi.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to speak. And thank you, Casey. That was an awesome presentation. That was a lot of information. I just have one couple of quick questions. And if you could just explain to me a little bit more about, did I hear this right? The bike garden. I mean, pardon me, I tried to read the 436 pages. I got through some of them, but I was helping my niece have her little baby, so I did not have a lot of time to read the whole thing this week, but here I am. So can you comment a little bit about the bike garden? Did I hear that right?
Yes. Ayano, did you want me to jump in and explain that?
Sure thing.
Yes. So the bike garden is a fun concept that is, it's a playful way for younger kids to potentially, there's painting on the ground that looks like a road, and there's some fun little stop signs. And then there are other features that could be more advanced and more engaging that could have undulations on the ground plane. It's not a defined element, but is a fun feature that we've seen more and more requests for in communities because it's helping kids and actually even older learn bike and road safety and how to interact with one another in a common space on wheels.
Chair, can I ask 2 more questions, or do I have to wait in line again?
You can ask another question. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll try to be quick. I won't take too much time. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
With regard to the pickleball courts, I know there was a lot of feedback that said that they wanted more pickleball courts. Can we comment on how often they're being booked and used right now? Or should that wait till discussion?
That's probably a question for me, and I'm happy to answer it just because it does affect all 3 of the different designs. But just so you know, we have the one set striped at Memorial that we are doing a pickleball trial on. And that trial originally was just a certain number of hours, and we did have to up it to an all-day thing because there are a lot of people out there and there are people waiting. So it is a very popular sport right now.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. Then one last question, and that was the event space. So maybe Casey, you can answer this question about the event lawn. We were talking about, just the whole concept of having a lawn in this day and age of the drought. But then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, all 3 plans had the event lawn just in different places. So can you talk to us about why that was put in and how that can be justified?
I think that's a great question. So I think it's appropriate that you're reacting to it. It does visibly look like lawn, and we call it a lawn. Although I do want to say that if it's a lawn event, flexible open space, it doesn't necessarily have to be a mowed sod. We could consider some of the broadleaf ground covers that are much more sustainable and low water using. We could also consider that there be some areas of it that are bark mulch, and it serves for gathering spaces. In this concept, we're showing it as a flexible, usable open space. The material of what that will be does not have to be sod or lawn.
Thank you very much. That's all I had for right now.
Okay, terrific. Our next commissioner with question, Jennifer Sheeran.
Hi, again, thank you so much. I'm going to follow on with what Carol said. This is amazing, all this work that's been done. I'll keep my questions pretty short. One is regarding bike connectivity. I noticed that I think in all the plans, the idea would be to send bikes through the center of the park. And either at that point, when they're heading west, they would either go north, presumably towards the Mary Avenue Bridge, or south, they end up in the parking lot of Memorial Park, one of the designated on-site parking lots. Is there any opportunity to instead turn the bike path or the bike path through the park around the parking lot? I don't know how fixed that is right now. And the reason being, of course, is that it can get dangerous if you put bikes into a directly into a parking lot. So I guess I'd love to find out, is that still an open issue or a possibility?
I think so. We're still in the stage of, picking out features, and we do have bike connectivity as one of our priorities. So nothing's defined and set in place, but that is something that we have heard comments on, so we'll take that into consideration.
Great. My next question is about the multi-use paths. I know that you guys have been very careful to say these are multi-use paths throughout the park. Do you happen to know approximately how wide in these concepts that you've been putting the paths?
I'll have Casey take that one.
I don't think it's specifically defined yet. I mean, I do know in our graphics, we laid out a dimension. We do have an assumption of hierarchy. Ultimately, when we do get to the point of finalizing our plan, we'd want to make sure it fits and allocates movement of people in multiple directions and accommodates multimodal movement as well. But in our graphic, Michael, do you know what we're showing our paths at now? Because we're showing them at something.
Yeah, the hierarchy itself, it still has, there's still opportunity to change that. I think the hierarchy, we're showing maybe 12 feet wide or so, 15 feet wide. But that is, we're still in the process as we move to a preferred concept plan, how to better define the hierarchy of these multi-use paths.
Great. Sorry, I have like 4 questions. I hope that's okay. I know you mentioned that there's an ability to kind of flow some of one concept into another concept. How is that outreach? In other words, how are we going to focus in on a few things? Because for example, the senior center deck is particularly appealing to me in one design, but yet there's aspects of another design that are more appealing to me in general.
So parts of the survey does ask everyone's favorite from each concept. Also in the survey, there's an open question at the end if anybody has any comments. I don't think just because it's on one concept, we couldn't add that same, say, senior center connectivity in a different one so long as there's space. So that's the kind of the ranking we're trying to figure out from the different surveys we're taking.
Great, thank you. My last question is about parking, and I don't know if you guys can go into that. I noticed when I reviewed all of the parking information, the entire study, that the utilization of parking in the senior center, the permit lot, was very low, even during festival days. And I don't know if there's a possibility, and this is probably more towards the Public Works Department maybe, about reviewing the policies for permit parking areas. Is that a possibility as part of this process? It's a lot of P's.
I think that's something we can always take into consideration of any policy changing maybe for permit parking. I think generally, as you probably read, the event parking is a big concern. Permit parking, I think during the non-festival days, I know it does get crowded, especially for the fight for tennis courts that happen. So I think I think that's going to be something that's probably going to be a long-term issue to kind of suss out between sort of in that parking zone, I guess. But some of the ways we're trying to alleviate it is having a drop off in some of the concepts.
Thank you. And that's all. That's my last question.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sima.
Thank you very much, Chair Stanley. Casey, I must really congratulate you on an excellent presentation, really well put together. Thank you very much. I have some of the questions that have already been asked by and answered previously, but I do have a couple of follow-up questions. I love the fact that you have enabled or allowed for flexibility going forward. Did I understand that correctly? Even though you have 3 designs, that there is significant room for flexibility, correct?
Definitely.
Yeah. The second question that really strikes me is, and I don't know if I missed it, but when I was reading through the package, is there actually a price differential? Is there a price cost that varies across the three different designs? Is there some kind of, because price is one of the considerations, right? Overall, and in your presentation, I did not quite hear which one was relatively more expensive, which one was relatively cheaper. And that is a separate aspect, of course. The social part of it is a different part, but I'd certainly like you to elaborate a little bit more about the cost structure as well.
So right now we don't have specific pricing as we're trying to still feel out what the public would like to see at the park. But as you said, it will be a major portion of how to move forward with this project. Should we, pick a concept that's on the higher end, phasing may become something that we consider, and things not, constructed all at once. Other things where, overall budget concerns will be addressed when we have a more developed schematic design.
Yeah, that is a point of concern for me, as you can tell, because if we leave a completely open board, then we can all have our ideal that we would like to see. But I think when it is, in my opinion, a reasonable additional question to add in the survey what the cost implications are for the residents, because ultimately design and cost needs to go hand in hand for people to be able to make a considered judgment. What are the implications overall? Second aspect is what I absolutely loved is some of the commonalities across the three designs, where you're looking at the enhancement of the entrance, parking, and all of those parts. Sustainability is an issue that came up from the previous commissioners as well. I have not had a chance to really look into the specificity of the question framing, but how are we actually framing it? Are we just saying sustainability at a high level, or are you actually going specifically in terms of what its implications are for the city long term?
So I'll try to clarify. So I think some sustainable aspects are going to have to be with some of the features that are finally decided upon. So we're talking about maintenance, we're talking about water conservation, we're also talking about other natural settings. Again, I think it kind of depends on what features gets highlighted, but maybe Casey, you can elaborate on some of the different other sustainable points.
And Casey, as you elaborate, can you please tell which one is the most sustainable, second most sustainable, and the third most sustainable of the three designs?
I think what's not easy to answer at this phase is the rough order of magnitude of cost or rough order of magnitude of sustainability, because I think at the high concept level, all of these have the opportunity to be tweaked in ways that make them more cost effective and more or less sustainable as well. So we're really trying to focus more on the ideal programming, program adjacencies, and usability that we're seeking in the park, so that we can get the big idea in our specific plan, and then from there use strategies that we have as a design team and within the city to try to find the best, most suitable materials, planting, alignment of trees to provide shade, irrigation systems that are mindful of water use, and I'm sorry, it was sustainable and cost. And so then materials that are also the most cost effective, durable, because it's not just what it costs to put it in. It's, as Ayana mentioned, it's also the cost to maintain it, keep it working well. If there are programs and stuff we put in it that might create more funding than those that don't. So it's a little complex for us. So the first thing we need to do is try to get an understanding of what the priorities are in our concepts, and then it's easier to break it down. But I think you're absolutely right. That's very important in ultimately picking our preferred.
Yeah, I will belabor the point because I must. So I am in the same area at workplace. So we just simply cannot just propose designs, as much as I love all three designs aspects of it, that without, it cannot be divorced from cost. So there has to be a cost component attached to it for there to be a reasonable way or an educated way in which people can
Excuse
actually.
me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Commissioner Swamy, can we keep this to questions for
So
right
that was
now?
my
I
question
appreciate
that,
your concern.
yeah, no, it's not just a question. My question, so it's a follow-up question that comes up from the concern is there at the very least, Casey, I think what would be helpful is to have a relative cost, if not, right? Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I just, I think what she said is we're going to get there at some point. And one of my questions will be about process, and hopefully that will clarify for you more where it's going and how we are going to get there. Do you have another question?
I have a question for you, Chair Stanek. If that is the position, then are we as commissioners do we have a carte blanche? Do we not have some kind of a cost structure that we have approved a priori, or are we saying that whatever works in the end, do we not have a cost that has been put in place or a ballpark that we cannot exceed that we are looking into? Or are we saying that that's a question we must not ask and it is outside the purview of this meeting altogether?
No, absolutely not.
So that is my
I think maybe Rochelle can address that, or perhaps Susan, is the way the process works with respect to figuring out what concepts the public is looking for, and that's what our outreach is for. And then we will come back, they will come back with cost estimates, and we'll see what is affordable at that point. Susan, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stanek. I'm Susan Michael, the Capital Improvements Program Manager, and I will say that we don't have a fixed budget to design to at this point because it is a master plan. We didn't have a budget, for example, for the Parks and Rec System master plan, but we came up with priorities and concepts. And this is a large property, and we're doing a very similar process here where we're coming up with priorities and concepts. As Casey mentioned, we will get into more costs discussions when we have something to actually price. Right now, it's like it's so broad that it's very ineffective. I will say that Gates has been very responsible in that way. And right now, the three concepts are of a similar nature and of a similar cost. It's not like one is going to be 10 times more expensive than the other, but we do know they're very similar.
So that is very helpful response. So that was what I was looking for. So thank you for that clarification. And it is a reasonable question to ask. And thank you for that answer because it does make a lot more sense. So Casey, I must again congratulate you on a very, very well put together presentation. And knowing that all three of them have more or less the same cost, if I understood the response of the project manager accurately, that makes it much more easier for people to really wrap their heads around it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Swamy. Commissioner Bush.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for giving me opportunity. I think I have, very simple couple of things. I'm sure when we talk about Memorial Park, I think few things are flagship, like the event space where you have some of the best event where in a day, 20,000 people visit, right? Whether it's a Chinese, some events for that or Diwali Mela or so I'm hoping that there is no compromise on that space. If anything, we can use a little more parking arrangements and other things, and make it easy for people to enter that area. But that's really a flagship thing. Another one is that amphitheater, right, where you have a Shakespeare.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bush, do you have a question? So I'd like to keep this section for questions, clarifying questions for the consultant.
Okay. My question
and we can bring it back to some discussion.
Is there any?
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, sorry. No, I agree. Perfectly fine. So is there any, I just want to is there any compromise on the event space? What we have now, is it going to be bigger, smaller, same?
The intent, especially in the civic focus one, is to increase event space. That was something we heard from the community. So the concepts try to increase that.
Okay, great. I think at this point, that's it. I'll refrain from other questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions. And I guess the first one, well, with respect to specifics, two of these concepts pulls out the softball field. Is there discussion with staff of, is there another place to have a softball field similar to what we have? Because that seems like it would be a big takeaway. Michelle, can you address that, or can the consultant?
Yeah, so we've all had that conversation because this softball field is not one of the like youth softball fields that we use through the field use policy. So it's actually not quite as used as the other fields. The only real difference with it is that it is the lighted field that we do have in the city. So there are a number of other parks that have that opportunity, and therefore, given current use, we are not too concerned about losing the softball field at Memorial.
So there would be another space somewhere else
for other groups, yes. And like I
satisfy.
said, it's not what's used for youth sports, and that's really who uses most of our softball fields. But of course, drop in, there's many other fields in the city for if somebody just wants to come play on a day that youth sports are not using it.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking the leagues that go there, I guess. Sometimes.
Yeah, those are not as big as they used to be.
Okay, I guess, so it looked like in the feedback that you received, there was strong demand for aspects of each one of these three things. What is the process whereby you can integrate some of all of them?
The process is essentially what we're doing right now. We picked lanes for each of them and areas of emphasis, so we get a chance to ask people of these which are the most important. So we get a new set of data to take into our preferred plan and do our best to accommodate the top line items that came out of these three concepts into a final option.
Okay, and in terms of, so we're going into this new phase of public outreach. You're presenting to us now what the previous public outreach is and the three concepts that you're presenting. Will you have the data from this new phase of outreach when you are presenting to council? What is the expectation for the April presentation, and what is the longer term? What's like for the year? What do we expect the process to be?
So we will solicit input on these three concepts in a similar manner to how we have with this group, as well as to the community and through the online survey. We will present to City Council the findings from that round 2, which is what we're in now, sorry, the lingo, and then also the preferred plan that was generated from the feedback we collected in round 2.
Okay, so the preferred plan will be going to City Council. We won't have the commission itself won't have another opportunity to view it before it goes to council, the way it stands right now.
Right now, we have just the findings to be presented to council in April. That is correct.
Okay. I think those were all my questions. I see Commissioner Begor has her hand up. Do you have another question or two?
I really have one question, I promise.
Okay.
There was, you collected a lot of input, and there was six focus groups whom you interviewed. Just remind me how they were selected and what those groups were.
So a majority of them were selected based on actually this the original master plan. We were trying to get a baseline on what information was gathered during that project. And then some of the groups were internal, including emergency services, internal with the park staff and programming, as well as grounds and maintenance.
Yeah, I saw that description of the groups, and I get staff and all of that. But who were the community groups that actually participated in this?
I can try and give you that information. I don't have that detail in hand,
Okay.
but again, we started with a list that was produced part of the 2020 master plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Swamy, another question?
A follow-up on that. I'm not sure I completely understood the list that you were given. What is that list of community people? I'm sorry, can you please elaborate on that? And another follow-up question is, I mean, an addendum to that is, why not pick a random group of people, Cupertino residents, that might be using the Memorial Park?
Again, we were starting a baseline from what we learned, so this consultant is different from, and myself too, came on after the park master plan was done in 2020. Some of the things that we wanted to glean from it, from the focus groups, was what the baseline was and what the process was from that 2020 master plan. The idea for the survey is when we felt that would be more inclusive of all the public findings that we wanted to, and not just make it exclusive to a certain random focus group. So the focus groups in the beginning were more intentional on trying to figure out what happened and what has been going on with the park right now. I think the first survey covered a lot of how the public would use the park as it is now and existing, and what they would like to see.
Okay, thank you. I guess one question I would have is, how many people were involved in the input were there surveys, or were there just focus groups, and how many people did that cover?
So the focus groups for various organizations, again, I can try and produce a list later. The public's input survey that we had in the fall, I believe it was about 800 survey responses. Maybe Michael, you might have that. I believe it's in the staff report, our response from our initial survey.
Susan, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have the list in front of me. We broke the different focus groups into adult activities and youth activities. We also reached out to internal groups, but what Ayana said, we were trying to reach out to groups that were previously involved in the original master plan development, like the Veterans Memorial, Cupertino Historical Society, sister city organizations, the block leaders, the Cherry Blossom Festival leaders. So we had in the adult groups, the Veterans Group, the Audubon Society, the First Baptist Church, Fine Arts League, Dogs Off Leash Champions, the Enza College representatives, Cupertino Rotary, sister city organizations, Chamber of Commerce. We invited a boatload of, from those groups, we asked for representatives. I don't remember how many people actually were a part of the meeting at the end of the day. And then one of the other main focus groups that we had was based on youth activities. So we tried to have the people that are part of youth groups or lead youth groups or teach to also be to give us their input. And we invited Friends of Children with Special Needs, Inclusion Collaborative, Organization of Special Needs Families, Pacific Autism Center for Education, Achieve Kids, etc., at different school districts, Parents Helping Parents. We reached out a lot, including Walk by Cupertino. So that was one that everybody's heard of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
You have a quick follow-up, Sashi?
Yes, a quick follow-up.
I'd like to get the public comment.
Yes, I will. I just wanted to see if I read that right. Was it a total of 29 interviews? Susan, maybe you can. Or all of these groups together was totally 29 people?
Yes.
No, we invited many, many groups. We had 2 focus groups of those.
2 or 6?
We did the activities. We grouped many together. And so we had one of the groups was the adults focused activities. The second one was youth-based activities. And then we had emergency services and internal, 2 or 3 other internal programming discussions and feedback loops.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, great. I would like to, at this time, invite public comment on this agenda item. So if you, where'd my mouse go? If you would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand and we will call on you. And you will have 3 minutes to speak. Our first speaker is Deepa. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I just want to point out a couple of things. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 2 times a day. There are some people that always appreciate Memorial Park, and that's the dogs and the dog owners. It doesn't matter whether it's raining, even if there is snow and sleet, more likely you're going to see dogs out there truly enjoying what is there, every tree, every bush, every piece of grass. And we are also very conscientious because we keep it clean. And we make sure we tell anybody else if we see them that, yes, please keep it clean, because we all appreciate what Memorial Park provides us. It's one of the largest parks in Cupertino. It will be extremely unfair to about 60 dog parents and dog owners who use it on such a regular basis in favor of an amphitheater, which might be used 6 times a year during the summer and empty rest of the time, or for baseball field, which Rachel has already pointed out is hardly being used. We see it, we go there every day, and we are kind of having an unofficial dog play area over there. I'll be very honest with you. And 90% of the time, the place is not being used by anybody. And that entire huge baseball area is, a prime area, which is essentially being wasted, in my opinion, right? I'm going to go back to dogs off leash area has to be part of the plan. And I kind of felt like the first concept where the baseball area was going to be used for multi-age, multi-play area might be ideal, from enabling a DOLA in that same area, if that's being thought about ahead of time. The other 2 concepts were a little too busy, in my opinion. Regardless of the final, please keep in mind that there are maybe numbers, you will find them in the survey fewer than others, but in usage, the dogs and the dog owners are the biggest users of the Memorial Park. So do not in any way skip them or miss them. Please make sure dogs off leash area is part of any plan being made for the Memorial Park. Again, I'm representing over 60 dog owners. We are in a WhatsApp group, and we love Memorial Park. We are out there. We have had Halloween shows last year, and we've had other parties last year, all the dog owners. So we love that area. Our dogs love what Memorial Park has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Our next speaker is Jennifer.
Thank you, Chair Stanek. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and really, really great presentation, everyone, on everything about Memorial Park. Cupertino is really, really lucky to have a park like this. A lot of cities don't. And for a lot of people, Memorial Park is kind of like their backyard. Just a little bit of history on the property. This was originally the parish home property. And where the senior center is now is where the Victorian home was. I actually was lucky enough in the 80s to go into it before it was actually taken down. So this is a very historic property. They actually, at the time that they were going to build De Anza College, the Board of Trustees initially had the choice of the parish property, or they had the one where the De Anza is now. So I'm glad that there is a memorial park. I want to make sure that the Veterans Memorial is not touched, that it's left that way. People have asked me, what is the memorial and Memorial Park? Well, now we do. I think that the softball field, we need to take a look at that, because it was, in the early years, it was used a lot. And I'm going to say right now, I'm a big proponent of lots of lawn area. A lot of children have too much structured play now. They need to have the ability to just lay on a lawn and dream, kick a ball around, play with dolls, etc. Um, I I think that a lot, especially boys. I have 3 brothers, got 3 active brothers. They played ball, they kicked balls around, etc., etc. Girls do too. Children need to run around. And we have to remember that we have a lot more children in Cupertino that do not have yards. They're in apartments, they're in multi-story high-rise buildings. This is their parkland, and every child deserves they need lawns to run in, oak trees to sit under and dream. So I want to make sure that, yes, it's more efficient to not have a lawn, but I really love that initial view of Memorial Park when you're coming along Stevens Creek, when you see that big green park land there. If lawn is managed correctly, it's not going to be a big water waster. I know that. So let's just make sure that we have lots of open space for people. Also keep in mind
15
that you're
seconds.
next to a senior center. You want to make sure that you don't have a lot of scooters, etc., there to possibly knock the elderly people down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Louise Sarati.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, hello?
Is that, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so I would like to ask that the DOLAs not be forgotten in the final scheme of things. In particular, I think I do like Scheme 1, which I think also Jennifer Griffin and I are united in support of Scheme 1 because it has that nice grass area that can be an open play area that also is amenable to a DOLA area. And children can play and roll around in the grass with or without their dogs. And I think the few dogs that are there in Memorial Park are going there on the QT, but actually if Memorial Park was a official DOLA, there would be a lot more dogs going to Memorial Park. And in particular, I know that from Jollyman Park, there are about 300 people that use Jollyman Park. And when Jollyman Park, which is an athletic field, is closed for maintenance during the rains and such, the dog owners are very pathetically texting each other. Is the field open yet? Is the field open yet? Where else can we go? Where else can we go? And if Memorial Park could have a DOLA there, that would be where that area would not be an athletic field, and they're kept to a different standard than an athletic field at Jollyman has to be completely level, no divots, nothing. Whereas Memorial could be open to the dogs who, when you have a big dog, it's desperate to get out in the park twice a day. So please think of the large number of 10,000 dogs in Cupertino that need to have access to a DOLA so they can socialize, be dogs, exercise, and come home calm and peaceful and help the mental health of their owners and the dog community that they form while they're out there at the DOLA. So please have a spot, please select Scheme 1 and a spot for the DOLA there. Please just don't get us forgotten off the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Our next speaker is Tessa Tessa Parrish. There we go.
Hi there, good evening. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. Hopefully there's not an echo because you're on my speakerphone in my car. This is the first time I heard. I don't normally tune in, and I must admit I have not been keeping up with the plan, the general plan of Memorial Park, though I should, because I frequent it a lot. It's the closest park to me, and I go there with my dog. I walk him, and I definitely use the fields and the whole park, actually. I walk him all around, and I do have to confess, as the other owner did, we use the baseball field as an unofficial DOLA. Um, but I actually have seen a lot of people use the baseball field, so I was a little troubled by that. I would like, first and foremost, to say the dog owners are very respectful when we're there, and everywhere I see dogs. It's used a lot. Of course, we all have. It seems like now after COVID, everyone has dogs. So, but I also see a lot of people using it on the weekend specifically. I see older gentlemen. I think it might be unofficial baseball games. I see children coming with their parents to practice um, with those machines, to hit the ball. And so I think there might be some people that are missing that you may not have, that are using that field, that will be very upset when it's gone, because I could tell they walk there, or they frequent it. And like I said, there's older gentlemen using the field in the weekends. I would like to see, I know it's asking for a lot, but I would like to see if it's possible to keep both. Um, I don't know. It just seems like such a shame, just from what I've seen. But big concern for the dollars. If you could please put in one there, that would be closest to me, and I don't have to drive as far as Jollyman, though I love Jollyman as well. Thank you. That's all.
Oh, thank you, Tessa. Our next speaker is Lisa Warren.
Thank you. First, I need to add, I was running out of time before, but I do want to add that when I reached out to the city about the situation at Lawrence Mitty, I did get responses. So I was just letting you guys know. I wasn't saying nobody answered me. That was not the case at all. And I know there's a procedure, but I just think you need to be aware and go check it out for yourselves. So I'm glad people asked about the focus groups. I've been hearing through different channels that so many people feel left out of this. And when you list the focus groups, I have to admit, it concerns me that there would seem to be a lack of actual, just regular old residents. I know this happens a lot, and it's always frustrating. It's always, to me, an issue, and I don't know how you can improve it, but okay, done with that. I'm happy about increased shade. I'm happy about sustainable improvements, the statements that those things were there. Festivals and events, yes. I mean, they're there now, but if they can be better in some way, fine. Bike garden, I'm interested in knowing more about that, because I think where it was said it would be is in the multi-age game area. And when I look at the picture of what this is, it looks like it takes up more space than would be available there, but I would need more information. I have trouble. I'm super glad that we had a commissioner ask about cost, because Susan, I know you know what you're doing, and you're always awesome in your details. I just find it very hard to believe that those three choice options could be the same cost. We've got some complete bathroom remodeling and moving, changing location where the restrooms are. And we've got, I don't know, it's hard for me to grasp how they could all be the same. And if there's any interest, which I think there is definitely for me, to mix and match and maybe throw some things totally out and add some things that aren't there, that will affect price as well. Because of what you're mixing and matching, if you're keeping all the expensive stuff and getting rid of all the less, you need to know that. I am very concerned because I guess I need to know, there's no playgrounds. There's one playground in one option, and it's a smaller one being redone. And there's one native playground, which is really not a playground. Our kids need playgrounds, and we need inclusive playgrounds.
please.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Our next speaker is Kwong.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm here to support what everybody said about dollar. I'm really hoping we can put a trial in quickly because I think we were campaigning for a trial dollar area last year. Even my kids was asking me why this is taking a while to do that. I feel like my dogs is getting older as we wait. But anyway, uh, there was a lady that said every child need a playground to run on or something. So I like to echo that every dogs need a playground to run on too. I mean, my dog can. Don't get me wrong. My dogs run in the backyard, but it's just a, I go to Memorial Park almost every day with my mom and our dogs and meet friends there. It's just a great place for dogs, and nobody use that field in the morning. There are very few people, so specific hour dollars like Linda Vista. Those are really great, great use of the park. I know the lawn is taking up a lot of water, but come on, people, we've been getting a lot of rain. So hopefully next few year we'll get more rains. So there you go. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our last speaker is Nori.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
we can.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I live in Cupertino for over 25 years, and I live here near Memorial Park last 10 years. I enjoy to walk in the Memorial Park with my dog every day for 2.5 miles. It is very good exercise for me too. And first of all, I'm so glad that the pond was finally removed. The pond looks very pretty, but it looks very dirty, many geese drops. And we could not walk without stepping on the drops. And a lot of dogs, in fact, ate it. And then for Memorial Park, I think concept A, community focus, and concept B, natural focus, can be combined to meet many people's interest. It is great concept that the least amount interest softball field becomes a multi-age play area. The center playground can be bigger and all-inclusive playground for children of all ages and abilities. Thank you for Lisa. We need big playground. And also, I like the idea of the bike traffic garden for children. That area where another pond was removed and behind the amphitheater can be nature area. There will be still 2 big fields for event. The park can be meet for all recent interest in this way. Children from summer camp at the Quinlan Center can go to the new play area and the nature area during the camp or break. And by the way, I think the renovated amphitheater has to be at the current location right next to the big truck entry. Many equipment and music instruments are delivered by truck, and there is a truck entry, and they park Anton and come into the entrance, through the entrance, and bring those equipment to the theater, and then for concert and performance. Those trucks can easy to come in from Alvis to Anton and out
15 seconds.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. That will close the public comment. And what I'd like to say to those of you who commented and anyone else who is listening, I think at the end of this, we will again show you the additional ways that you can participate. And this is really the opportunity, the next phase of this whole process is to broaden the outreach through the survey beyond the focus groups. And there will be an opportunity at the Senior Center, and I'm sure we will see that again towards the end. So I really encourage everyone to participate in all of that. And so thank you for your comments tonight. So now I'd like to bring it back to the commission. And before I do that, I'd just like to get the perspective from you again of what is it that you're looking for from the commissioners today, because I know you're still going out for additional outreach from the public.
Actually, I think these are all great questions. These are, you know, as I responded to some of the questions, these are things to consider. I want to make sure that every commissioner understands that we might not be able to take everything into account, but we do consider them. We appreciate all your comments and questions. So exactly this.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to open it up to commissioner comments, and if you could keep your comments to just a couple of minutes, I would appreciate that. I think everyone would. So if we have any hands, if anyone would like to comment. Okay, Commissioner Begor.
Two basic comments. One is, of course, I would like to see some more information about this whole softball field usage. If we could get some, you know, just send it to the commission just as information for me. I know this is not the feedback from whatever we're going to do is not coming back to the commission. If it could before April, that would be useful so we can actually have a discussion. But I would like to see, you know, just a little bit more information, how much it is used, how much is not used. I know it's not part of the field use policy. However, you know, taking that feature away, given that it is a lighted softball field, and I'm not sure there's another one like that in another park, might be useful. And the second one, to reiterate what Commissioner Swamy had mentioned, is if we could get some kind of a ballpark figure about plans, because clearly moving the amphitheater from where it is to somewhere else is going to be a huge cost. You know, just to say, okay, plan A is say X, this will be 2X or 10X, some kind of a figure like that would be very useful.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
all I have to say.
Super. Commissioner Sharon.
Thanks. Again, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work on all of this. Since tonight we're just reviewing this and it's basically a, you know, thank you for sharing what's happening. I don't want to go into too much. I think since I was part of the process for creating the master plans for both the bike and the pedestrian master plans, I kind of understand where you're getting at, where you are showing the public what the options are, and then from there you're going to craft a plan. So I'm not as interested so far at this point about costs, because it's so unknown as to what we're going to end up with as far as the bundle. So I think that right now I'm not interested yet in costs because there's just too many unknowns. I guess I'd like to say so far I'm leaning towards one of the projects, but I think we're going to hopefully have a chance in the future to really give more substantive input. Is that correct?
I think for right now we have following the schematics, we'll have a presentation towards the end where we present again before we go into environmental review.
Okay.
And that will be after we get some more feedback from council.
Great. So I guess just a couple things are my question about the exit of the bike path through the park into the parking lot. It would be nice to know whether or not that something can be done about that. So that's a concern for me. And then, of course, the question about the parking as well. Those are probably open questions for me that I would like answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Swamy.
Thank you, Chair Stanek. There are a lot of things up in the air. Totally get that. And I was actually taking succor with the fact that I was informed all three of these designs have more or less the same cost, which is what made it like an equal playing ground for me to make that. But as Commissioner Begor started talking about the tearing down of the amphitheater, putting it somewhere else, that's where I think it just rang a bell in my mind, bell of alarm in my mind, because that cost, is that worth it? Can we actually, if we know what that, I know it is not knowable right now, but I think we can intelligibly make certain elaborations and assumptions in our mind that should we refurbish an existing building rather than tear it down and rebuild it in another location. So I would just say that as we are making these decisions, I'm saying this to the Gates team because I absolutely really think that there are great aspects to all three designs. That are those certain considerations we can keep in mind. And even if the cost is absolutely equitable, if there are some cost savings, if we can make some intelligent things, those are things that we would like to you guys to be able to bring back to the table following the survey that you look at. Is that something that you can bring to the table next time you come around, is a question based on those concerns that we have. It's all about public responsibility and public money, right?
I do believe that we'll have some costs associated with the schematics. Yes.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Swamy, for your comments. I think in some ways the question I think you're getting to, and it's a good point, is it's not so much how much does it cost to move something, but is the cost of, for example, moving the amphitheater worth it? Is the gain?
Yeah.
And even though there's numbers involved, it's more of a qualitative question right now. And so that's part of what we're asking the community to weigh in on, or what are the quality points that are most important to you? And we're taking this feedback from the commissioners tonight. We'll be taking feedback on Saturday at the Senior Center. We have another community meeting coming up. We're here to listen to the community on these points. So thank you for your input.
Yeah, I only take exception to one's word that you use, which is it's only a quality. It's more than a quality. It is where can we use that money more wisely if the cost for uprooting an amphitheater, for example, costs us many more millions as opposed to refurbishing it. What are the pros and cons of it? So when we hear back from you, our recommendation, at least what I would like to see, is to see how can we intelligibly bring the same outcome if there are significant cost savings. So next round, I think it's helpful if you can at least think through the ups and downs, ins and outs, and make some recommendations with some degree of cost consideration, even if it's not hard numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask Commissioner Bush if he has any comments, because I know he had some thoughts earlier that he didn't get to. So I'd like to invite you in.
To hear about open space is increased. That's good. Dedicated pickleball is it's really a need of the hour these days because it's becoming extremely popular. And currently, what's happening? Those tennis courts. I've noticed that when pickleball, there could be two pickleball courts in one tennis court, but the whole court gets occupied by pickleball users. So if we can have a dedicated one, a couple of pickleball or two or three pickleball courts like that, I think I like that idea. Otherwise, I mean, I think bike and other multi-sports for multi-use for different age group. I think that's a brilliant idea also. So, and I think amphitheater should look good. We should make it our flagship, attraction for the park.
Okay, thank you very much. For my comments, I think multi-use is a key word for me. It's which brings flexibility. So if there is a particular space that we're designing, can it be used for multiple things? Can it be used for kids to be playing or people to be doing certain things? And then at other times of the day, the dog park people can use it. So that's where, if we have dedicated space, then when the particular people who it's dedicated to don't use it, it just sits there idle, and I'd like to avoid that. And I think that's why in a lot of places we've moved away from particular dog parks that are dedicated dog parks to sharing our parks with the people who want to have their dogs there. And at other times, then they're not invited to be there. So we heard a lot tonight, and there is a big interest, as you can see, for the dogs. And so really for me, it's sharing, it's the shared use of these spaces. I think there's probably an assumption on a lot of people that the softball field is just always going to be there. I know that I think it's the Geezer League that uses it, and through the senior center. And so I would definitely like to make sure that they're being heard. I love the bike garden. I would like, a place for kids to be learning to ride where they're not competing with cars. And I would like to see the space just be this gathering place. And it can be with any of these three concepts, but places where people can go. My example is when I was in China, and whenever we would walk through a park, there would be aspects of it. There would just be people, maybe there would be some music playing and groups of people would be dancing. It might be like a line dance, and anybody can join in. And other parts, one of my questions would be about food accessibility. Are there options? We used to have Jamba Juice right across the street or whatever. We're not going to have that now. What can we do to think about bringing food in so that people can, when they're using it, they're going to be getting some food and staying and enjoying it. And so I think that's really important, is how can we bring more and more people there just to be hanging out and making it a community focus for us. So I think as you go through this, I hope that those kinds of opportunities arise. So those are all my comments. And again, I would like to thank you. I think this is the most comprehensive presentation and background I have ever seen. In particular, I was fascinated, maybe you will think I'm really a geek, when I looked at the maps between 1912 or even before that. Where were they? They were from 1939, the aerial maps, to 2012. Fascinating to see the change from the orchards to a little bit of development. And as that went through, I don't know if the Historical Society has these aerial photographs, but they are wonderful. And some of it I was a little surprised to see the background talking about from 9,000 to 5,500 before the present time. So you really went all out in terms of the history, but the depth was really obvious, and I appreciate that. Especially those aerial photographs were just, like I said, I loved them. I think that's about it. Director, do you have any other comments? Yes.
Any more comments on this specific item, but I was going to ask before we go to the next item if we could have a quick break.
I think that's great. So again, I'd like to thank all the staff and the consultants for participating tonight. This was probably one of the biggest agenda items that we have seen, and I thank the commissioners for going through the packet, and I really hope that and encourage the public to participate, because this is the time when you'll be looking for their feedback. And I look forward to it coming back and for us to be able to comment on it some more. So thank you. And let's take a 6-minute break. Is that enough? And come back at 9 o'clock. Commissioner Begor?
You had mentioned you would put up on the screen the various ways people can provide the feedback. So let's just put that up and then we can go on our break.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. If whoever was presenting could show that. And we could like maybe keep it up during our break.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm pulling it up now. I didn't have it up anymore. Just a moment. Sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, no, you can just go through well, it was only 50 pages of presentation that we had for tonight. I think about 40 of it was yours.
I think if it's okay for you guys, you can take your break and I can leave it on the screen.
Perfect. That works for me. and just have everyone reopen their video windows so that we know that you're here.
Chair Stanek, can you just put that screen one more time for just a minute, for just a second?
It wasn't me. Rochelle, do you have
I
it?
think the consultant is gone, sorry, but it is in the packet with the presentations.
No problem.
Sorry. Oh, she's not gone.
There it
Yay.
I'm not gone. Sorry.
Quick, take a picture.
The
You have 5
information is
seconds.
also available on the Engage Cupertino website.
Is that good, Commissioner Swamy?
No, we're fine. Thank you. Please move on.
Okay. Let's move
Chair Stanek.
on. Commissioner Bush, could you turn on your video so we know you're still with us? There we go. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on to our next item on the agenda is item number 5, receive an update on current parks and recreation focused capital improvement projects.
So you can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Susan Michael, the Capital Improvements Programs Manager, and I'm here tonight to present an update on the Parks and Recreation focused Capital Improvement Programs projects and share the staff proposal for the fiscal year 2023-2024 5-year CIP. There we go. So I wanted to start off by mentioning that we do have the CIP dashboard, especially for the new commissioners and the community. If you go to the Cupertino city website, cupertino.org, and navigate to the Public Works Department page, you'll see on the left some links, and one of them is the CIP projects. And you can click on the link on that page, on the CIP page, for the interactive dashboard. And we have their information on all the active projects and maps. We try to update it once a month. So it's a very good resource for more information because there's a lot of projects and it's hard to keep up with. So I wanted to mention what is a capital improvement program project. So in short, these are projects that improve our city's assets. A capital improvement is the addition of a permanent structural change or the restoration of some aspect of a property that will either enhance the property's overall value or prolong its useful life, or it adapts it to new uses. A capital improvements project is typically distinguished from a maintenance project when outside consultants like engineers are needed and or the implementation budget exceeds around $60,000. That's our just litmus test. It's not a hard and fast rule by any stretch of the imagination. So how do we choose the CIP projects? We're often asked how we prioritize the projects. Our highest priority is health and safety. We need to keep the residents safe and make sure our assets are safely operating. When I say assets like this, think about storm drains or buildings, parks, playgrounds. We also consider the stated priorities from council and commissions and the community's feedback. Some projects are ongoing and need to be kept going or maybe reinstated if there was a reason to pause the project previously. So many projects are also derived from the master plans like the Park and Rec System Master Plan or the Bike Transportation Plan or the Fiber Master Plan. So we do definitely take that into consideration. We also take into account what is the fiscally responsible direction, whether that means staying within the budget, effectively leveraging our resources, or having a long-term vision as well as a short-term goal. And so what is the process? We're evolving this. CIP first requests the proposals from the city staff, and we take into account and consideration the projects requested by the commissions, the community, the council, and staff prepares a preliminary ranking of projects, and we review this list with the city manager and the department heads. And we take this list to the commissions, the Bike Ped Commission, the Planning Commission, and this commission. And we asked to verify, with the Planning Commission, we asked to verify the proposal is in conformance with the general plan, and we get feedback from the commissioners. We then fine tune our proposal because then we go to council next. So this year we're going to the council, the first meeting in March, and that's going to be our initial presentation on the program proposal. We usually have many questions and comments from council and the communities. So this year we're going to try something different where we come back for a second session with council in April. So the aim is to have all of the questions answered and comments addressed to the best that we can, so that when the CIP becomes part of the city's budget, the budget is discussed in May and hopefully ratified May, June of this year, so that it can start the fiscal year, which is July 1st. So we try to have all the CIP queries addressed before we get to the big budget meeting. And where's my mouse? So I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the status of existing CIP projects. So presently we have some major parks projects. We have 26 active projects. 9 of them are parks projects. And of course, you heard from Memorial Park project team tonight. You've also heard recent updates on the Jollyman All-Inclusive Playground and the Lawrence Mitty Park and Trail. So we're very busy with parks projects. Overall, there's 26 projects and 9 of those are parks projects. There's 8 bike and ped transportation projects. There's 5 infrastructure and 4 facilities projects that are active. We've also completed 10 projects this year. So they're either completed or will be completed by the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June. So the annual playground replacement, it's an ongoing project, but we did complete the Creekside Park tot lot this year. And of course, the Memorial Park pond repurposing project was completed. There's still a little bit of letting the plants take seed and a little bit of leftovers, but will be done sooner rather than later, any minute now. The Sports Center community needs analysis was completed by the Parks and Recreation staff. Tree inventory was done of the Stevens Creek corridor, so we've added that to our GIS inventory. We've also completed the Bike Boulevard interim improvements that were brought forward a few years ago. So the second phase is done. We're working on the third phase. There was an upgrade of a signal and intersection work at the Homestead and Dianza. That was done. The Regnart Creek Trail fencing, almost done. We're trying to schedule the grand opening of the trail in March, so we have to be done by then. And there was another Stelling Alves crosswalk installation was done. Cordova Road had a retaining wall done, and the sidewalk improvements at Orange and Burn, which took a few years, but that really helped our Safe Walks to Schools project. And then we have 10 projects that are deferred. So some of these projects are deferred because they're parts of other projects like the I-280 trail project. The west segment is listed here as deferred just because we're working on the central and east segments right now. Other projects are on hold because of staffing issues. So we're trying to expand the electrical vehicle parking, and I am one person short. So we're got a few projects that aren't moving along right now, but we will be able to move a great number of these along in the next fiscal year. So just as a high level look at the funding, the current funding, as we get into the numbers here, I want to say that it's not going to be, I think I still have to double check some of these numbers. I did this really quickly, but I think you'll get the overall big view of it, which is we have close to $50 million worth of work in the CIP, and over 15 million of that is in the parks realm of things. And another thing here is to see that we don't have quite as much in the streets and infrastructure. And if you think about one thing that the city does well, we did weather the storms very well because our public works crew has been maintaining the infrastructure very well. And I believe that it behooves us to give some, make sure that we're emphasizing those projects, and even though they're maybe not as sexy as a new park, but they are important to us. So this is the list of the existing projects. There are 9 active projects and 2 that are deferred. So the amphitheater project, we were going to renovate the existing amphitheater. Obviously, we're waiting to let the conceptual development of the park take another step forward before we sink time and effort into that. And the Stevens Creek Corridor Master Plan, we're waiting for the golf course to reach its, get direction on where we're going with the golf course before we get back into that. So it's, there's a lot going on, as you know. And so what is our proposal for next year? So this table, I just wanted to say that I need to explain it a little bit. So we've got the colors in this first column. The facilities is the golden yellow, green are parks, blue are transportation bike ped projects, and the red orange color are the streets and infrastructure projects. This is the funding that's proposed over time, but this blue column is the column where we are hoping to ask for council for money for this fiscal year, for the next immediate fiscal year. And then the yellow columns are where we're into the 5-year plan. So while we're asking for specific money to be approved in the budget for the next fiscal year, we're doing that within the context of a 5-year plan. So we're looking at future projects. So just to get into the detail a little bit, so this is the same table as the previous screen, but so the new projects are the Bollinger Road bike improvements. We're looking to develop a bikeway on Bollinger Road. Lawrence Mitty, Northern Connections. We got the feedback from our joint commission meeting and other public meetings that we had that we want to look at what's feasible for connecting the trails and the paths to the northern properties, but that will require coordination with jurisdictions. So we're definitely trying to get into that. We are looking to move forward one of the 7, 8 fiber expansion projects that were put forward by the fiber master plan. And that is extending fiber to the new property at the City Hall Annex, which is Torrey and Pacifica. And we're looking to repair the Stevens Creek Bridge. We have federal funding for that. And that's coming, we've been waiting for it for a long time. It's finally coming to fruition this year. And the Stevens Creek storm drain is in need of repair. And so that has taken on some urgency. So just to look at the detail a little bit more, next year we're hoping to have a golf course project. We're going back to council in July. The second meeting in July is when we're planning to do that, to get direction on the golf course. And it's a very important endeavor, as we all know. Lots of input from the public on that. We will be ready to get into the design of a 3rd phase of the Stevens Creek Boulevard Pikeway by then. So that's on the agenda for the previous year or the next year. And we're looking to do more of the fiber projects. So we've also got some of the smaller parks projects that have been proposed. We think that we might be able to get into that in the following year. So you can see that we have used these columns to wear these things out and to kind of take it out and show the 5 years. So these projects here, this is slightly different than the previous list, just to show you. These are all new projects that aren't funded presently. And then this next page are projects that are already funded, but we need to request funding in future years or this year. So these first 4 are multi-year projects that are already approved that we do have to go back officially to council each year and ask for the money. So that's the playgrounds, park amenities, streetlights, and the ADA improvements. And I'll come back to that. And then there are existing projects that we're requesting additional funding. We are asking for the design and soft cost fees for the City Hall project, and looking that we could get into the construction the following year. Council has asked us to bring that back, that item before the CIP, so we're trying to do that later on in February to get council's feedback. And the City Hall Annex, as we said in a previous council meeting, we expect that to be greater than the currently approved budget, but we will know more when we go out for bid, and that will be later this summer. The community gardens, this is a placeholder for 2 years. So we have right now a $300,000 budget, and we're applying that towards Wilson Park, where we're developing a community garden. Don't have enough money to do another garden without those funds. So we're positing that not this year, but in future years, let's revisit this program idea. It would be also good to have Wilson be built and start to be used and see how popular it is to have it in smaller parks. And then we're trying to address some concerns by having additional funds put towards what is already existing citywide building condition assessment implementation. So in 2018, we did a report on the status of the different facilities in the city portfolio, like Sports Center or City Hall, and that has identified major projects. We're hoping to create an ongoing multi-year program with that and do things that need to be addressed, like Quinlan Skylight. It was one thing in that report that was a priority. And then the Sports Center bathrooms have come up recently, that there's some plumbing needs that need to be addressed. So when we take those projects forward, we'll come to council with that to get clarity, but we're hoping to establish the fund so that we can address those already stated projects and then projects that arise on an emergency basis. And then we expect to have more funding needed for the Regnart Road project that's also underway. So there's a lot of detail there. Oh, wait, I forgot one big one. So Memorial Park. The ways the schedule's working out for the projects right now, we're looking that the initial design phase that we're in now, we'll get to a point where we'll have a design, and then we have to go through environmental review, and that will take at least 6 months, if not more. So the way we understand it right now, we'll be ready to ask for additional design services or additional funding in the next fiscal year, not this year. So we want to know more about what the project is and how it could possibly be phased. It is a major project in itself, and I can't imagine that we wouldn't phase it. I just can't. So we don't have the detail right now to ask for funding or to get into it. So we are noting that as an important priority for the following year. So that's important, especially when we're trying to consider a major city hall project, right? That how much are we going to be able to dedicate to other projects? So that's why the 5-year CIP takes on importance. All right. Turn page, please. There we go. Thank you. So the highlights. So there are no new parks projects in this upcoming fiscal year for CIP. And as far as you know, we have some major projects going on already. Memorial Park, Lawrence Mitty, and Jollyman being the major ones. And of course, that basketball court and community garden at Wilson, park amenities. We are very busy in this realm. We're in year 4 of a 5-year program for some of the multi-year projects that were previously approved. The playground replacement is one of them, and the park amenities. So we are going to be requesting those funds as expected in the CIP, but I think it will be something that we'll want to look at better or in more detail next year. So especially with the playgrounds. Playgrounds probably need more funding, and we might need less funding for the park amenities. The golf course improvements is a big one that will also be coming up. As I mentioned, we'll hopefully get direction this summer, and we can pursue funding and programming next year for that. And Memorial Park, as I mentioned, it will be a big one. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and attention for letting me make this proposal. I'll reiterate, I usually like to have a slide on this to say that the action for tonight is accept an update on current parks and recreation focused CIP projects and the staff proposal for the fiscal year 2023, 2024 5-year program. So it's receiving the update and asking for your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, let's go to commissioner questions. So this is where, feel free to ask questions. If you want to propose things, please wait for later after we're done with questions and public comment, and we can have discussion about those things. So Commissioner Begor.
Only one question. If you can comment, first of all, thank you for your presentation, Susan. If you can kindly comment on the Blackberry Farm pool improvements, can you give us a couple more details on exactly what it would entail? Because that's supposed to start kind of soon, sometime in the fall this year.
Yes, so thank you for your question, Commissioner. We but the project is the focus of the project is to replaster the pools, and we put that out for bid. It was complicated by having to, because of the size of the project and the cost of the project, we needed to add in the accessibility upgrades for the facility, and what that ended up doing was making the bids that we received more expensive than the budget. So we had to reject the bids, and we won't be able to do the replastering before the season. We're going to put it out for bid again, and we will have the contract awarded so that we can replaster the pools immediately following this swim season this summer.
So if I understand it correctly, it's just the replastering of the pools. The slide was taken away, and I was under the impression we were going to get a splash pad or something in its place, and none of that is happening.
No, okay. Thank you.
Just to be sure we are all on the same page.
We last year we proposed a splash pad as a replacement for the slide, and council rejected that proposal, and it is not being reproposed. And as part of the conversation with council, Public Works noted that the slide needed to be removed because it was in a state of disrepair and it was onerous to operate, it's expensive to operate. So it has been removed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sharon.
Thank you, Susan, for the presentation, and to the staff for all their hard work. I know there's a lot of big projects. You've answered a lot of my questions, so I only have one question. This is more of a history thing because I wasn't here for it. Was there discussion on building a pickleball court instead of another basketball court at Wilson Park? And the reason why I ask is, at Creekside, which is pretty close by, there already is a basketball court, and I'm just wondering if you could give me some input into that decision.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I also wasn't here, but I do know that the basketball court itself was the highest priority feature from the Parks and Rec master plan for, I want to say, younger people. And the fact that there isn't a full-size basketball court in the city of Cupertino that was available made it a priority. It's not to say we don't need more pickleball courts, but the initiative came from the master plan, and there could be more pickleball courts, but it wasn't part of this topic.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, Commissioner Swamy.
Thank you, Chair Stanek. You're right about that. I was actually going to add the addendum that Creekside Park doesn't have a full basketball court. It just has a hoop, and it's not even half a basketball court. So I'm really glad that you guys are focusing on putting together a full basketball court. I do think that is useful for the city residents. I had a question when you had the slides. You had a line item that said facilities, and there was some dollar amount associated with it. What was that line item? What does the line item of facilities entail? In one of your slides, there was a line item facilities, but there were a number of other line items about that. So I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but that's where my question was, what do you mean by facilities?
Is it,
In one of your earlier slides?
are you talking about this?
Yeah.
This slide?
Yeah.
Particular? So we have so many projects, and one of the useful mechanisms I have for organizing or for speaking about the projects is that we organize them into these 4 different types of projects. That there are projects that are done at parks, that there are transportation projects that are mostly bike and ped, and streets and infrastructure, things like storm drains and fiber, etc. And the facilities, if we need to improve City Hall, that's a facility project. So I will mention that there's some overlap. So for example, if we were improving the bathrooms at the sports center, that is a parks centric project, then it's in one of the Parks and Recreation buildings and facilities, but it's also a facilities project. So sometimes it is just what do you call it? We just choose what makes sense intuitively to where to put it. So like the pools project is a facilities project, but it's also a parks project. So sometimes we just make these decisions to say, well, this one we're going to put in the facilities category.
Is my understanding correct that all the budget for all of this comes from the budget allocated for parks and recreation?
No, thank you. So there's a capital reserve fund, and it is funded, and so these projects are all funded separate from Parks and Recreation. And that's why we have a big effort to go to council to get clarity on what is approved for the capital reserve fund, because it's substantial.
Right. And one final question about transportation. I heard you when you said transportation. Did you say it was about bikes and lanes? Is it restricted to bikes and lanes?
No, it's not restricted. In some ways, this is also semantics. I've called it bike ped projects in the past. Transportation allows us to include things like the intersections. Sometimes there's an overlap to it, whether it's a crosswalk. That's not necessarily a bike. Well, it's a ped lane. But there's a lot of trail projects that are also in that realm of things. So for example, the I-280 trail is in there. The Ragnarok Creek Trail is in that category. The Snelling Alves crosswalk installation was in there. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So one of my questions is, so tonight is our commission's opportunity to have input for the next year, the next 5 years. You're looking for ideas for all of that. What's the process? And also public input. So we will take some public comment right after that. Is that their primary opportunity for input into this? Or yeah, if you could just elaborate on that.
This is the input, the primary time for input on the proposal that we will be taking to council. So since our next step is to go to council, a lot of times council asks, have the commission seen this and what is the input? We're not asking for a vote because it's not a strict approval, but we will take your feedback and we definitely make note of it. Director Sander?
Sorry, I would just like to make note for anybody that was here. If you remember, we did have this conversation at the end of last year, and we did go over all the projects for CIPs that are in parks and ask if there was anything we wanted added. And I think all of us were kind of on the same page with, ooh, we got a lot going on that's green in that CIP level. So I think Susan's hope with this is now she's been able to put together all of them for all the departments and really show us so that we can see if there's anything specific that we're concerned about or feel is missing.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Okay, Commissioner Bush, did you have a question?
Yeah, on that same slide that Seema was talking about, Commissioner Sima was talking about, um, I think it would really help if, say, in park you break down further in a pie chart or in a multiple bar chart. Same way, transportation or facilities. So we know exactly what amount goes for, park, what kind of development in the parks, right? So if we want to figure out if adding more sports out facility or more area for example, somebody brought up pickleball or some basketball or some other sports, then I think it would help. It seems to me that the sports investment is very low in overall. I was looking at it. Yes, there is a lot of development on the bike side and the creek side, which is good, but actual sports need is a huge need. Trying to find a tennis court is so difficult, or anything. So that, I think, my question is, this is the question, right? So the question is that,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
please.
I missed that. So can you do that? Can you further divide into it? I appreciate if you can further break down those parks and all expenses. Can you do that?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. Definitely when we go to council, we have much more detail. Well, I wouldn't say detailed, but more information about funding and how much has been spent to date on the project. We won't get into the minutia about, how much do we spend on mailers for the Memorial Park project. That is public record and it's possible to get it, but not part of this presentation.
Okay. Okay. And then you talked about basketball court. Don't schools have, every school has a basketball court? I'm just asking, have you studied how many basketball courts are there in the schools? All Cupertino schools have it, in my understanding.
Thank you. So we're responding with the basketball court as it's a response to the master plan development. So CIP really takes development or policy that has been developed elsewhere and builds the projects. There are some exceptions to that where we've been asked to do feasibility, like traffic studies or whatnot. But the basketball court came out of the study and development of the Parks and Rec master plan. I know they've looked at schools, but I couldn't get into the detail of that. It might be worth referring back to the master plan.
Okay.
Okay, if that's it for questions, what I'd like to do is get public comment on this item. And so if a member of the public has a comment on the CIP, please raise your hand now. And we will go first to Luis Sadati.
Hello, this is Luis Sadati. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So an item that I don't see is monies for more park amenities for the DOLAs, because now that we have a Jollyman has been an ongoing DOLA now for over a year, and the park definitely has multiple items that they would like added to the DOLA, benches, more water fountains, and some lights so they can watch where they're going. Also, there are 2 trial DOLAs, and that would be Linda Vista and Monte Vista. And so they're very close to completing their trials. And we would like to see more monies allocated for park amenities for those DOLA areas, because they're lacking in benches, shade. There's a whole list that I can present as this issue progresses. But we would really like you to be aware that the DOLAs do need to have more park amenities, and like you to have that included in the CIP plan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Our next speaker is Jennifer.
Thank you, Chair Stanek. Susan, as always, I'm just blown away by your level of expertise on this. You're a very valuable asset to the city. I just wanted, the only reason I had really been looking at this is that I noticed that you all had a new CIP, which is the northern extension of the trail in Lawrence Mitty Park. And I'm very familiar with that area. We had a great course of water come down there. If you weren't familiar with it, Saratoga Creek had, I would say, 10 vertical feet of water flowing down there during the height of the rain in the last 2 weeks. And that area, the proper name for Calvert is called Calvert Connector. When Calvert tees off and comes down toward Lawrence Expressway, that is the correct name of it that I have learned from the county folks. And I just wanted to make sure that the money that Apple had specified for the development of the Lawrence Mitty Park, that 5 million, et cetera, was going to be reserved for the development of the Lawrence Mitty Park, and that if we're doing anything trying to go beyond, trying to get out to Stevens Creek, because this is I think it's the 5th reach of Saratoga Creek Trail to get out to Stevens Creek Boulevard. If we're going to be doing anything with the trail connection there, that is going to be, we're going to have to talk to the water department, City of San Jose, City of Santa Clara, roads and airports, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish. And of course, and there may be grant money available from the county to implement bridges, pedestrian, bicycle walkways. I'm not sure how they would do it. Right now, cyclists are allowed to ride down Stevens Creek. Are allowed to ride down Lawrence Expressway. It is completely legal. I see people doing that. So, but then again, you want to have connectivity, but I want to make sure that right now that the funding for the amenities in Lawrence Mitty, that chunk of the 5 million, the bulk of it goes toward the development of the park. That is what the neighborhood was told, and we would expect that. And then I believe there may be grant money available for the extension of the bike trail going north, but that's going to be, I rely on you talking to other entities with the county, other cities, et cetera, because that's a biggie. But for now, I just wanted to make sure that we develop the park,
Jennifer,
as promised. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Deepa.
Hey, thank you all. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. All right. So this is something that we have been thinking about for a while on how we can actually help improve some of the amenities on the existing dogs off-leash areas. There are 3 now in Cupertino, and we've actually been managing with Bearmont's facilities, like maybe having a trash can and the dog bags near the DOLA at Jollyman Park at least. I haven't had an opportunity to look at the other 2 trials as to what the amenities are available. My ask is that in the CIP program, funding be set aside to improve the DOLA amenities for the existing DOLAs, 3 in count today, and help improve the experience for the dog owners. Consider putting water for the dogs available close by, water fountains. Definitely consider providing more shade if that's possible. and benches for some of the owners, some of the older owners, sometimes to be able to just sit down and take a break while their dogs are playing in the dog off leash area. There are many things that we can do to help improve the experience beyond just what is basic, and none of them are very expensive, but having it as part of the capital improvement program just seems like it'll be so easy to do if it's part of the CIP as opposed to something that we might want to pursue separately. So I would like to ask that we include DOLA amenities improvement as part of the CIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Our next speaker is Tessa Parrish. Welcome, Tessa.
Hi, good evening again. And yes, three areas that I wanted to, in addition to the infrastructure that Jennifer mentioned, the playgrounds, and Lisa mentioned as well, is the playgrounds for the children. I really do miss them, and I see, as much as I love all the other features and that we have for the rest of the public, I am seeing more playgrounds in other cities than I am in Cupertino. But I just wanted to make sure that we included that. I also wanted to put in a plug for the senior amenities, and I know there's some going in at Jollyman, wherever we can, including a midi park, that the senior activities, or the all-inclusive, should I say, all-inclusive amenities are fully funded for. I like the idea, like Carol said, of everyone being included. But I am also newly a dog owner. We're actually training a service dog. I need a place to train my dog off leash, have it be safe. Usually the dog owners that I see being off leash are very respectful, because in order to leave them off leash, they have to have good recall. And my son actually really has benefited a lot from having a dog. My only regret is not getting one sooner. But I also have learned that dogs have been with humans for 30,000 years, and the Romans actually had laws regarding dogs. If you had them on leash, you could go to jail, because dogs work, and they can work for you. They can they can take care of your house. They can help you. There's paraplegic dogs that find items for the people that can't bend over. I know a lot of veterans that have a dog to fetch things for them, etc. So I know that they've been with us, and I think if there was a more inclusive viewpoints of dogs, that they're not just outsiders and out of the general public, that they are part of they're a part of my family with my child, and I believe my family benefits a lot from them. I know there's a cost involved, and I hate to say this, but I believe that some of us would be willing to donate, or have a donation, or some kind of contribute towards the DOLAs and amenities benches specifically for them. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tessa. And our last speaker is Lisa Warren.
Hi, thanks. So I wasn't going to speak on this, but I will, because Jennifer asked some questions, and I know you can't answer questions during this time, but my understanding from many comments in the past is that the Apple designated money that they gave in lieu of park fees is not going to be used in any way, shape, or form in any pathway going out of Lawrence Mitty proper. So hopefully I'm correct. And Jennifer, I think I am. But I'd like to know more about, at some point, I want to know how I can learn more about the idea of spending $150,000 for a feasibility study for a northbound bike path or trail, whatever we want to call it, that goes over a freeway entrance under an overpass that has no room because the creek is right there. There's no room for a path on the west side of Lawrence Expressway. And then it would lead you only to crossing Stevens Creek, where again, it's an entrance to Lawrence Expressway. So it's just an odd way to spend money when there's currently an existing sidewalk and what you might call part of it a path on the San Jose side of Lawrence Expressway that takes you right to an already well-used crosswalk across Lawrence Expressway at Mitty. It's already there. And I just want to understand why there would be $150,000 allocated for feasibility of something that really isn't feasible. Okay, that's it. You can tell I feel strongly about that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. We still have one hand up, but that's Louise Sudety, and she already spoke. So we will bring it back to the commissioners. And if you would like to comment on this, please raise your hand now. I'm going to get your title right now. Vice Chair Sharon, please.
Thank you, Carol. You're so funny. So we've obviously had several members of the public call in about DOLAs. They're very concerned about this, and I think that's worthwhile to ask that question. Is in the park amenities line in the CIP, does it include some of these items that the DOLAs would really appreciate, such as, you know, water fountains, benches, that sort of thing? Are those included in that line item? Or is that something we need to pursue or consider for the future?
Through the chair, is that all right if I answer?
Yes, please.
So I don't have a list of specifically what is included in the amenities project in front of me, but I can say that actually the Parks and Rec Commission went through the list of amenities that were proposed for the different parks, quite a long matrix of things, and we have priority lists. Many hydration stations have been implemented where there's a lot of things that need to be done. Like there's 2 ping pong tables that are being installed, benches, etc. So in short, I do believe that most of what is being requested for the DOLAs is included, but I'd have to get back to everybody with more concrete information on that.
Just to add to that quickly.
I'm gonna comment on that, because I think when we did that prioritization, we didn't have any DOLAs. And so it was really very specific about benches and water fountains and shade, but it wasn't looking towards what the DOLA users might be looking for. And I think so part of it, and my comment here is, I think there's a fine line. So there's a very defined process for CIP, but not so much for maybe operational things. And there are budgets, I believe, for operational things. And there may be things that don't rise to the level of a CIP. And it's not clear to me, and it seems that some of these things might fall into that operational budget, either from Public Works or from Parks and Rec Department. And so I'm not really sure how to reconcile that and where the request comes in, because I'm pretty sure last year we talked about, the DOLAs, because they came last time we talked about CIPs and they asked about stuff. And yes, we did say there's a lot of stuff on everyone's plate, but that we wanted to see what things we could do that at least, some of them may rise to a CIP project, some of them may not. To, Commissioner Swami's favorite thing is, how much are these things going to cost? We don't know. And so the question is, how do we get our hands around that?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Begor, did you have another question about that?
I actually wanted to make a comment, if I may.
Please.
And this was exactly with regard to the hydration stations. There, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Sterling Barnhart Park has a water fountain for the dogs. So there's one right at the ground level. And I remember when we discussed hydration stations, I actually brought that up and said, why don't we upgrade the hydration stations so that they include the dogs as well? Now, I don't know if that comment got lost in our whole conversation, but I believe that might have already been in there. Somebody needs to comment and clarify.
I see our interim director has turned on his video, so I'm wondering if he'd like to make
I'd
a
be
comment.
happy to answer that one.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you.
We are installing hydration stations, and the hydration stations we've been installing include both a water bottle filling station as well as a hydrant for people. And at the base of each of these is a hydrant for dogs. We've installed 18 of those thus far. We have 2 more that we're installing. So we've been focused on trying to get these facilities out.
Great. Is there a spot somewhere that we could see a map on where those are being installed so that we can...
I would like to see that map myself, but we can try and track that down and get it to you.
Thank you. That would be nice. I believe, share it with everyone. Yeah.
I believe we actually had a list where we went through each park and said, this needs a hydration station, this needs a bench. Wasn't a fun exercise, but it was necessary.
Yeah, and we've been trying to adhere to those requests with these installations.
Great.
Yeah, I think where some of the requests that the DOLA folks, where they're coming from is that now that the DOLAs have been in place, what we did was we created the trials as a let's see how it goes. And as they've progressed and they've been successful, but they realized they could be maybe more comfortable for more people if some of them have a barrier of some sort between the DOLA part of the park and maybe a walkway, whether that's a hedge or a small fence. And I know that none of that was really considered in those park amenities. So those are really the specific things that I think they're getting at. And the question is, where can we start to consider those things?
If I may, I believe one of your points earlier was actually, it was good to bring up that in some ways it's not a CIP question. It's more an operational question. So especially if those areas or the trial dog parks are converted to permanent at that time, then we would install the needed amenities that go with it. And happily, we have funding available to do at least some of it with the park amenities CIP project that's there. But we need the direction from the kind of the, is this now permanent park? So we want to make sure it's not the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah, so it is one of those things. It's like, who knows if it's going to fall into a CIP or not be a CIP? How much is a fence that would go around a particular part? Fencing can be expensive, I know. So,
and I'd just like to add a little bit of information is, currently we don't really have operational budgets for grounds. They don't have what we like to call just buckets of money that they go out and do, like new fence. They have some small budgets that they use for maintenance and repairs for emergency stuff. For something like a new fence, that would be a request either in a proposed budget or in our CIP. In this case, this would be a perfect opportunity to utilize the park amenities funds, and that's kind of what these funds were intentionally, I think, created for, was to address some of these smaller, maybe not quite CIP level projects that the community and the Parks and Recreation Commission would like to see installed. Hydration stations, benches, fences around a DOLA, whatever you see as appropriate. And that's was an operational bucket for folks to be able to utilize to make these improvements.
Okay.
If I may, through the chair, I'd like to point something out on our website for you all, since it's what we're currently talking about.
Yes, please, as long as it's appropriate, I guess, for our agenda.
Well, yes, so you guys are talking about CIPs and obviously possibly adding things that have already been added. So just for the fact that we have the CIP information, I want to make sure that you all know that on the Parks Master Plan page, there is the strategic plan, and that is all of the information for every park that we went through so long to decide what each park needed from the master plan and what our priorities were. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that that piece was there, because as we talk about the CIPs, those are items that we did create as part of that CIP project that says park amenity improvements. So just to give you that knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I guess what we want to think about is life goes on, and the master plan was created maybe 8 years ago now, or however, and we didn't have DOLAs at the time. So I think we're seeing that there's different kinds of needs, whether it's just, you know, and people don't want a fenced in park. I don't want to give that impression, but maybe a barrier to a street or to a pathway that would make it more comfortable for everybody. Again, getting back to my multi-use priority, that everybody is comfortable, whether it's the DOLA people or the people who are not as comfortable with the DOLA, so that everybody can be using the park at the same time. Okay, I think, you have what you need?
Yes, thank you. Just trying to think if there was, I think a lot of the comments on the park amenities, and we'll follow up with that. And playgrounds, definitely, where the playground project is very important. It's also not just that they exist safely. And we do have inspection reports where we're planning on updating many of the playgrounds. So we're prioritizing that based on both previous discussions with this commission, but also the safety issues of some of the playgrounds. So that will be coming back next year, but that's already funded. So yes, thank you. I think I've got good information.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. And that will close that item. We will go to our next item on the agenda, which is staff and commission reports. So this is where we receive a monthly update report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and commissioners, to the extent that you have been at community events, and we encourage all of you to participate in community events. This is the time where we'd like to hear about the events that you've participated in, whether it's a festival or a, if it's one of the open houses or, you know, that's coming up for Memorial Park, or other events in the city. And so we hope that you do get out there and interact with people and ask them questions and let them know you're a Parks and Rec commissioner. So Director, would you like to go first, or would you like the commissioners to go first?
Let's start with the commissioners.
I think I knew that's what you'd want to do. Okay, do any of the commissioners have any reports? Since we have 2 new commissioners, that's not surprising. I do have some. Let me see. I attended the council meetings, especially with respect to the procedures manual, and I gave them feedback specifically on one part of the manual where they had said, I think it was really just an oversight, that they had said that council members and commissioners should not speak at any other Cupertino government bodies. And that didn't seem right to me. So I suggested that they remove commissioners from that, because we do have the right to speak at other government bodies. If we are speaking, we should be speaking on behalf of ourselves and not on behalf of the commission, unless we've been specifically authorized. So I did give that feedback to them. I did the ethics training online. So some of you are new. You may be getting invited to that. And it's a nice little course, and it gives you things to think about. How do we treat each other with respect, as well as what kind of conflicts might we encounter? So I encourage you all to engage with it and enjoy it. I attended the Library Foundation event in connection with Valley Water managing an extreme drought. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Begor. I think she was there on behalf of the Library Foundation. And that was very informative and a very good event as well. And I also encountered a woman at our labyrinth, and I consider it our commission labyrinth over at McClellan Ranch Preserve. And if you have not been out there to see it, I encourage you to go there. And there was a woman walking around the labyrinth very peacefully, very respectfully. And as she came out of it, she bowed to it. And I walked over to her and I asked her if she was enjoying it. And she absolutely was. And she didn't know where it had come from. And I told her that the commission was involved in making this available. And she was just delighted. And in fact, she had painted a rock that she had placed there right in the middle. And it was a beautiful, it's a bigger rock, and it's like it has a pink heart on it, and I think it says blessings across the top of it. And it was very nice, and she put it in the middle of the labyrinth, and she said, you know, part of the intention of labyrinths is that people build on it and that it grows over time. And so she actually has her own website, YouTube website, or YouTube channel, let me say. And she made a little YouTube about the city of Cupertino's labyrinth in McClellan Ranch Preserve to encourage other people to go there. So that was a very nice encounter and great feedback for us. And I just wanted to share that all with you. Commissioner Begor.
I was wondering if maybe I should carry stones again and recreate the one in the creek side as well. It was quite a workout, but must be time.
Yeah,
that was a
that
good
is
project.
something that, you know, we hope to see more of those labyrinths in other parks as we are updating parks. It would be nice to figure out how we can get the one at McClellan Ranch Preserve maintained by the park staff. That's something that's sort of been on our radar. So those are the kinds of, that's just an example for you of the kinds of things that we encourage you to share if you've participated in something around the city. Any other commission reports? Okay. Director Rochelle, take it away.
All right, so first of all, I do want to say welcome to our new commissioners. It's good to see everybody here tonight. I appreciate a full house. But I'd also like to say we haven't met since December. And so the department did obviously have a very busy December with all of our holiday events. And then we have come back and we're starting to get really into the swing of things again. And swing of things meaning coming out of this pandemic for real. So the city clerk had sent out an email to you all on January 18th. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say you all, to those of you who were commissioners at the time, to let you know that the emergency order does expire on February 28th, and that is the state order. And so commissioners will need to resume attending commission meetings in person. So our March meeting will be in person at Community Hall. The Parks and Rec meetings are held at the dais where council sits. And staff will be following up with you guys because there will be some training on the dais. Some things did change about it during the pandemic. So we will be getting in touch for that. The Parks and Rec meetings will still have hybrid options. However, that's for the members of the public. Commissioners will need to be in person. For those of you that have members of the public that would like to watch, please let them know there will still be the hybrid option for them. For events, our youth activity board is hosting a teen movie night, which is very exciting. They're showing Minions Saturday, February 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Quinlan Community Center. And then IT would like us to let you guys know that there's a travel reminder. So if you're traveling internationally at all this year, Please inform the IT department in advance of the dates of your travel and the locations. This is a security issue because if you log in and it lets us know you're logging in from, let's say, Ireland, we need to know it's you, not a hacker. And so it's very important that they can change your status and put where you are when you are traveling. That traveling then, when you do come back, we've had a couple of issues with some commissioners, not their fault at all. But what happens is if IT doesn't switch it back, then it will tell you that there's a location issue and not let you sign in. So if you get that, email myself or Jessica as soon as you get it, and we will email the IT team and let them know, and they'll make sure to turn off your international travel so that you can actually get all of your emails and information we send you. Jess and I are here to help you all when you need it, so please feel free to reach out to us. And those are my updates for today.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Commissioner attendance at upcoming meetings and events. And I presume that the most important one of those is probably the mayor's meeting.
Yes, yeah, so the upcoming mayor's commissioner meeting, the February one will be virtual over Zoom, and then starting in March, the mayor's commissioners meetings will resume in person, and those will be at City Hall in Conference Room A. So that's starting in March. And the commissioner mayor's meeting is the second Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. And usually during this time, we will ask the commission to volunteer themselves to attend the meeting on behalf of the commission and provide updates. And then usually at the following meeting, you will come back and update the commission on what was discussed as well. So with that being said, if anyone would like to volunteer, we hopefully tonight can pick people to attend maybe for the next, let's say, like 4 months. And then we can kind of also pick as we go as well and adjust and follow up at the next commission meetings too. So,
okay.
Yes.
I'd like to volunteer for February.
Chair Stanek, that will be February 8th at 5 p.m. And that one will be over Zoom. Are there any volunteers?
Would anyone like to March?
Okay, yes, I will do March. I wish that was on Zoom, but hey.
That's March 8th.
All right.
Okay, April. Would anyone like to volunteer for April?
Can do April. How long is this generally?
Usually about an hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then
they try to make it be pretty prompt.
Okay.
And I can do May.
Okay.
So it's May.
It'll be May 10th.
May 10th at 5 p.m.
Yes.
And what I would like to say is if you find that for some reason you cannot attend, please let me and Rochelle and Jessica know, and we will shop around and see who else might be available to attend for you. So rather than just not having anybody show up, which doesn't look good for our commission, yeah, please let us know as soon as you know if you can't attend.
Since they won't be on Zoom, what conference room will they be in? Will they be in A?
Conference room A.
It is A. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, that's attendance at upcoming meetings. And the last item is future agenda setting. And we really have not had much of a vision on this. And I'd really like to get back to seeing farther out in the future so we have a bit of a sense of what might be happening in which months. I mean, I know right now we can think about community funding grants that are probably going to be coming to us. I'm sure the director knows which months those are, and anything else that you have. And in the next couple of weeks, maybe we can get together and sketch out, if there's not things that you have prepared, because I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, if we could think about what that is to present to the commission, because I think, you know, like knowing that when the CIP projects are going to come up or something like that, so we can have a little bit more time to think about it.
So through the chair, I just want to put out there the fact that obviously council meetings, what happens at council, you know, budgetary items, all of that really does change when things come back to or to commissions. So we of course know like March and April's community funding. Get ready for great long meetings. That's what we get in March and April. We will have a meeting, I believe right now we have it set at June, where we will have our historical society update because that is in their contract. So that will come to you guys. Otherwise, basically what we are looking forward to is hoping to plan anything that is yearly that we know when it's going to be, but anything that's kind of, you know, like we don't know what council's going to say, let's say about the specific plan. So we're not sure how long it's going to take and when it'll exactly come back to you. That would be something that would be, we would say like maybe spring, maybe fall of 2023 or whatever. So I just want to lay those expectations out there because I know in the past it was a little easier to come up with a full calendar. Now there's a lot more that goes to commissions and a lot more that goes to council that does kind of shuffle things around a little bit when it comes to the year and the calendar that we can create.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's completely reasonable. And I appreciate that. I mean, some things and everything that's on it, I would say is proposed. Nothing's set in stone because other things come up and we have to deal with them, except for the community funding. We know when that's going to be. But we'd like to see maybe a proposed time frame or an expected time frame, and maybe there are other things that are just maybe on our radar that we don't have a time frame for yet, but we know we're going to be seeing at some point. So hopefully we can get together and have it on a piece of paper that we can share with the commission, and with all caveats that things change. And Commissioner Begor, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask, can we even propose things that maybe we want to discuss?
Yeah, so the future agenda setting section is for you to be able to propose. If you are a commissioner, you do need a second to get it on the list. Mm-hmm. And we are proposing for basically a list. And then we work with the chair to build the agendas from that list. And then of course, other things that are going on.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Just a question. I don't have anything today I can propose.
Oh, I was ready. Okay. I think that's everything on the agenda. And if that is so, I will adjourn the Parks and Rec meeting for tonight at 10:13. And I just got a notification in my ear that my AirPods are about to die. So I think this is perfect timing. Thank you all. And again, welcome to our new commissioners. Thank you to our returning commissioners. We have a lot of good stuff to do. We are known as the Fun Commission, and so some of that is up to us to make it fun, and hopefully it will be for everyone. Thank you and good night.
Welcome to everybody. Thank you.
Carol.
Congratulations.